I'm actually quite surprised that no one ever made the Crew Iceberg videos or maybe the Crew Iceberg images on the internet before. So, I'm gonna make one myself, because you know, the Crew franchise is getting much more popular compared to before thanks to the Crew Motorfest. Motorfest gains more popularity thanks to all the people who came from other racing games community, because they try to aim for like something competitive in the Crew Motorfest and some enjoyable arcade racers experience, just like Need for Speed franchise or maybe Forza Horizon franchise. And because the Crew franchise gains more popularity, I decided to make an iceberg for the Crew games from the Crew 1 and the Crew Motorfest. And I know some of you probably only played the Crew Motorfest but never played the previous Crew games before, like the Crew 1 or maybe the Crew 2. So maybe a lot of you didn't know about the fun facts and glitches, or maybe some cut content or missing features that has been in the franchise ever since. So if you guys didn't know about the iceberg video before, it's basically there's like an iceberg with a lot of content and information, but yeah, literally anything that can be put it on the iceberg. And I will try to explain every single information or content on those each icebergs. And I divided my iceberg into 9 levels. So basically, the level 1 is basically just like an information that a lot of people already know, or it's just like a popular topic that is already discussed in the community. And then it goes down on each level to much more less known information or facts, or maybe very obscure or very unknown to everyone. And because the Crew franchise has a lot of piece of information, yeah, this has a 9 level tier of iceberg. So it's going to be a long video. I apologize with my English because English isn't my first language. So there will be some minor grammar issues or, you know, minor pronunciation issues when I talk about some topics in the videos. And also I try to avoid many drama related stuff in the iceberg, because maybe it's getting much more personal with the people or some certain community that I didn't get involved with. Oh, and also, if I'm missing some stuff that I should put in the iceberg, or maybe some correction of the facts that I explain in this video, just let me know in the comment section down below, and I will probably feature the missing stuff that I didn't put in my iceberg as a different video in the future, and I will crediting you in the future video as well. So sit back, relax, I hope you grab some snack and enjoy this video. It's going to be a long video, trust me. The Crew 1 is the first installment of the Crew games in the franchise. The game got released in 2014. However, when the Crew 1 nearly reached a 10 years anniversary for the game, Ubisoft just announced they will delist the Crew 1 and its expansion from any digital platforms, and they will shut down the server on 21st of March 2024. This Ubisoft decision on trying to shut down the Crew 1 sparks a lot of controversies, not only a racing games community, but a whole video game community in general. Because what Ubisoft trying to do is just revoking the license who owns the Crew 1. So you cannot refund the game, and we already know that video games should be preserved and it should be owned if you already buy the game. And what baffles everyone when Ubisoft trying to shutting down the Crew 1 server, a lot of players in the community discovered that the Crew 1 has an offline mode. Ubisoft and IVT doesn't even bother to add an offline mode to the Crew 1 prior to the shutdown. So this sparks a lot of controversies, and also a YouTuber accused Farms talk about this topic, and he started his own campaign of StopKillingGames.com for the Crew 1 shutdown situation. So if this StopKillingGames.com movement or campaign can be signed by hundreds of thousands of people or maybe million people who signed the petition, Ubisoft will be in bad situation. They're already in bad situation. They're losing a lot of money, and they will have a lot of lawsuits prior to this, the Crew 1 shutdown last year. So you will say like, yeah, the Crew 1 server got shut down, so the game will be unplayable, right? No, but there will be a modded server called the Crew 1 Unlimited, because they developing using like a server emulator or something. And I'm very excited about this project. I just hope the community or the modders get their job done, because yeah, they worked so hard for this modding project to be done. So the future of the Crew 1 is in safe hands, right? Well, sorta. Map expansion is always a thing since the Crew 2, but after tons of the updates in the Crew 2, we will always have like a different changes to the map, especially they adding like a brand new racetrack. For example, like in the Dominion Forsberg update, they adding a lot of racetrack there. And then the last time we have like a proper island expansion in the Crew 2 is when they adding like a racetrack in the middle of Michigan Lake. And the racetrack is really looking cool because the track looks like the Trackmania racetrack. However, in the Crew Motorfest, we finally have a proper island expansion. In Season 5, we finally have the Maui Island side by side to the Oahu Island. Well, I guess in Season 2 of the Crew Motorfest, it should be counted as well as an island expansion, because we have a Hoonigan Gymkhana Arena in the southwest part of Oahu Island. But yeah, the Maui Island looks really beautiful and really enjoyable to just like cruising around and roaming around the map itself. And also in Season 6, they adding like a brand new playground, which is the Red Bull Theme Park. And they also adding a couple of changes to the Maui Island, like adding a brand new suburbs area to make the map look more lively. So it got me thinking, maybe in Season 7 or maybe in Season 8 of the Crew Motorfest, we'll have a brand new island as well. If you go to the northern side of Oahu, and you will see a different island there. And I don't know how Ivory Tower trying to implementing this island into the Crew Motorfest. So yeah, we already have the Maui Island expansion, so maybe we will get another island expansion in the Crew Motorfest sometime in the future. Collection import is one of the features that linking the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest. When the Crew Motorfest got announced at first, the developers already giving some insight about this collection import and how it works. So basically, if you already own the vehicles that is eligible to import from the Crew 2 to the Crew Motorfest, you don't have to spend any money again if you play the Crew Motorfest. So basically, it saves a lot of time if you play the Crew 2, and you don't have to grind more money to buy another car in the Crew Motorfest. So yeah, it really helps a lot of people. However, if you only play the Crew Motorfest and not playing the Crew 2, I think this feature is still not really that necessary, because you can just like grind it in the Crew Motorfest, get some money, and then buy the cars there. But you're still missing out on the Crew 2 exclusive summit vehicles. So that's why like the players who played the Crew 2 before has a lot of advantage thanks to the cars they already get from the Crew 2 Summit. I know a lot of people will try to prevent themselves to importing the cars immediately from the Crew 2 to the Crew Motorfest to enjoy, the beginning of the game, and to see how's the progression in the Crew Motorfest compared to the Crew 2. And if they already get stuck and just really want to, import the cars, you can just like import it every time, every day, everywhere. When the Crew Motorfest got released, we're missing one of the most important car brands in the game, which is the Lancia, Abarth, and Alfa Romeo. So we were assuming that Ivory Tower has some licensing issues between the Stellantis Italy groups, right? Ivory Tower trying to renewing the contract for the licensing of Abarth, Lancia, and Alfa Romeo to Stellantis Italy. But because Stellantis Italy in 2021 to 2022 has some managerial change, all the licensings related or negotiation were getting postponed and were on hold. So finally we managed to get the car back in Season 3, I think. And we finally get Alfa Romeo, Lancia, and Abarth as a mid-season update. I think it's like the last month of Season 3, I think. And this is the same case as other racing games out there in Forza Horizon 5. So prior to developing Forza Horizon 5, I think they also tried to renewing the contract for Stellantis Italy car brands, but because they're in managerial change, so the licensing deal and negotiation are getting postponed as well. And we finally managed to get the Stellantis Italy car brands in Forza Horizon 5. in summer of 2023. I'm just hoping we will have another Lancia cars or Fiats or Alfa Romeos in the future as well. Red Bull and Ivory Tower are already in collaboration for the Crew games since 2017 when the Crew 2 got announced. Which I think it's appeared in the announcement trailer of the Crew 2. I think it's like a magazine called The Bull or something. So yeah, they already partnership since a long time ago. And also in Red Bull website they're talking about the Crew 2 and how good the game was, which actually aged quite badly. And they also teasing the Red Bull Proto Buggy as well. Yeah, because previously this Proto Buggy doesn't have any Red Bull livery. It's just like a normal, preset racing livery from the game, but because they partnering with Red Bull, they adding the Red Bull livery for the buggy. And I think there's also like a lot of Red Bull rally raid cars and motocross in the Crew 2 as well, and the Red Bull F1 cars, which we still got a brand new Red Bull F1 cars in the Crew Motorfest too. And then in the Crew Motorfest, we finally have like a Red Bull dedicated update in Season 6, which apparently it's not really a good update, but they adding a lot of Red Bull vehicles into the game. For example, like the Red Bull Plains, and then the Red Bull Watercross, and then the Ford Fiesta WRC, the Ferrari Red Bull DTM, the Red Bull RB20, and there's a lot of stuff related to Red Bull. And we also have like the Red Bull theme park into the game. And so this is proof that Red Bull and the Crew or Ivory Tower connection is really tight. Live Summit is a weekly team event that already introduced since the Crew 1. However, in the Crew 1, it's actually a monthly team event. The first time we got introduced to the Summit mode was back in the Crew 1 when they finally adding the Wild Run DLC. So basically Summit mode is just like adding a replayability to the game for the players who already finished the game and just like trying to do something with the game in the Crew 1. So they basically adding like a special monthly event to get our hands on the special rewards. For example, like special vehicles like cars, and then like special upgrades, and also some of it are like a special item that you can just get it from the Crew 1 Summit back then. And the FOMO system in the Crew 1 is not really that bad, because so basically if you miss the car and you're not getting platinum, you will get the car months after. So basically that's a really good idea to prevent the FOMO system back then. And however, in the Crew 2, they reintroduced back live summits on 2019 spring update, I think. And they also like adding the Vanities item and the Mitsubishi cars. That's what I remember. And the rest of it is history. And we still got the same weekly team event in the Crew Motorfest with the live summits. We still can get like exclusive cars and a lot of things. Like the summit rewards in the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest, it always guarantees you to get like followers or XP if you finish on bronze tier. And then on silver you can get like free cars, or maybe free upgrade parts, or maybe free visual parts. And then for gold it's the same, you can get like a free part, or sometimes you can get like a free exclusive vanities and also free vehicles. And then sometimes for platinum you can get an exclusive vanities or an exclusive summit vehicles from the Crew 2 summits or the Crew Motorfest summits. The only things that is different with the Crew Motorfest summit, it has a special modifiers. So sometimes you can get like an unlimited nitro summit events, or maybe like this week in the Crew Motorfest they have the pro racing modifiers, which it feels like we're playing a different racing games, or being an F1 driver like Max Verstappen. Yeah, it's really interesting, but I know a lot of people will hate these modifiers, or maybe some of the summit modifiers in the Crew Motorfest. The Crew Motorfest should have a proper crossplay with full functionality. However, the crossplay features in the Crew Motorfest is very limited. For example, if you are playing in like PC and you're trying to like connect to your friends playing on PS5, you cannot crew up together. You cannot do playlists together, you cannot cruise around together, or maybe even doing some co-op playlist event or summit events together, because you're on different platform. So the only thing that is possible, you can crew up with the other PC players, or maybe if you're on PlayStation, you can only crew up with the players on PlayStation. Yeah, I know, it's very dumb. Even though the Crew Motorfest says it has a crossplay. So the only cross-platform features that we get in the Crew Motorfest is for the PvP game modes like the Grand Race, Demo Royale, and also the leaderboards for the time attack or maybe for the summits. So that's not a fully functioning crossplay in my opinion, because you cannot do anything except the PvP game modes or the leaderboards with the people on different platforms. So yeah, basically IVT and Ubisoft lying to us. Working mirrors is one of the most requested features by the community for the Crew games. So since the Crew 1, the mirrors for the vehicles is not working, just like in GTA 5 for example. And a lot of people really requesting in the Crew Motorfest as well, because yeah, we have a different game engine and it's really questionable that like why since the launch we didn't have any working mirrors. But eventually in Season 5, when you have the Maui Island expansion, they actually adding a working mirrors features, finally. The working mirrors features was also introduced in the announcement trailer. For example, like this one, I think they're trying to tease the vintage playlist and it's properly working on the announcement. So this gives a lot of people to speculate that working mirrors will be in the Crew Motorfest. But eventually we got them in Season 5. I think it's better late than never, right? This is the most discussed topic in the Crew community. Where's Subaru cars? Back in the Crew 1, we already have Subaru cars, which is the Subaru BRZ. There's like a drift spec of the Subaru BRZ, the rally spec, the street spec, and I think that's it. However, in the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest, Subaru cars were absent, and we never get them again. This got a lot of people speculating that Ivory Tower and Subaru are having a bad relationship. So maybe when IVT trying to renewing the Subaru contract for the extension of the licensing, I think they pissing off Subaru too much and Subaru just pull out and say, nope, no Subaru for you. Even though in the Crew 2 in-game files, there's already a Subaru thumbnail, which is the Subaru BRZ Rally, Drift, and the normal spec. I just hope Ivory Tower can reconcile with Subarus and Subaru cars can return to the Crew franchise. But yeah, we really miss Subaru so much in the Crew Motorfest. And fun fact, the removal of Subaru in the Crew 1 is actually the Crew 1 last ever update. That's really tragic in my opinion. That's the last update, and then 4 years later the game got delisted and the server got shut down. That's how Ivory Tower and Ubisoft treating the Crew 1. After the StopKillingGames.com movement for the Crew 1, because the Crew 1 got delisted and got server shut down and revoking a lot of license for the player, so we cannot play the game anymore for the Crew 1. So Ivory Tower and Ubisoft got in trouble, so they finally add offline mode treatment for the Crew 2 and Motorfest if they already finished to not supporting the game ever again.
And the Crew Motorfest, and can confirm an offline mode to ensure long-term access to both titles.
So basically when they try to shut down the server or the game got listed 10 years later or maybe somewhere in the future, you can play the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest with offline mode. So basically yeah, StopKillingGames.com movement helps something. And this is a step into a right direction for the Crew franchise. But sadly we still lost the Crew 1, which is the best Crew games in the franchise. There's a lot of like celebrities, content creators, and athletes that made an appearance in the Crew Motorfest. One of the most example is the Chris Forsberg himself that is appear in the Crew Motorfest and has like a dedicated special month. And also Chris Forsberg is already in the franchise since the Crew 2. And you also have like Black Panther or Mr. Theo Thomas himself that has a dedicated Summit Week, and also with Shmi150 who also get a special Summit Week as well, which you can get exclusive cars from the Summit that is owned by both of them IRL. And then for dedicated playlists, we have a Donut Media playlist which hosted by James Humphrey, and a special Hoonigan playlist which hosted by Brian Skodos, which aged pretty well. And then you also have like a special dedicated playlist for Liberty Walk featuring Mr. Wataru Kato himself, and a Supercar Blondie playlist. Other than that, there is a minor cameo appearance by some of these content creators like That Dude in Blue, which it has like a special Summit Week back in like Season 3. And then in Season 6, we have a dedicated Red Bull update, which contains an iconic Red Bull athletes like Yuki Tsunoda, a Formula 1 racing driver who drives for Racing Bull's team. I'm sorry, prior to recording this video, he already moved to Red Bull Racing F1 team. Yep. And then you have like the Hansen brothers, the Kevin Hansen and Timmy Hansen, famous for Rallycross Motorsport. And then the Mad Lad motocross rider, Robbie Madison. Talking about other content creators, we have minor appearances in the game as well. For example, like Don Jowon Song has a dedicated special helmet in the game for the electric playlist. Black Panther has a special helmet for Made in Japan playlist, and Sid Watch made an appearance for the Hawaiian playlist. And other than that, probably the other celebrities that I didn't mention is Max Verstappen, which I will discuss it in the other content of this iceberg. So this is level 2. Let's start with Ubisoft game reference. Yeah, because this is a typical Ubisoft games. So basically this is how Ubisoft fashion on how they trying to referencing other Ubisoft games. For example, they adding it as Easter egg. Like for example in the Crew 2, we have like an Easter egg for Assassin's Creed and the Assassin's Creed logo, obviously. And then it's funny that in the Crew 1 we have a special livery for all the other Ubisoft franchise. For example, Splinter Cell, Rainbow Six series, Rabbids, Driver San Francisco, and Assassin's Creed. Yeah, that's a really nice reference to the other Ubisoft games. And also there's a Watch Dogs reference in the Crew franchise. If you go to livery editor and then you go to the special sponsor right here, you will see WKZ News. WKZ News is one of the media news in Watch Dogs series. So yeah, that's basically a cool reference or Easter eggs relating to other Ubisoft games in a Ubisoft game. And also, if I remember correctly, I think there's also like the Crew reference in the other Ubisoft games. For example, the X Deviant, which they have the US Speed Tour, and then there's like a speed racing banner. I think it's one of the maps that's related to racetrack or something. I never play X Deviant, but yeah, so there's the Crew reference there, which is actually really cool. Motor Pass is probably one of the most controversial thing they added in the Crew 2. So basically it's a battle pass for racing games. But anyways, the first time Motor Pass got introduced in the Crew 2, a lot of people is really pissed about this. And basically they lock like special cars or meta cars behind the Motor Pass. Back then, the Motor Pass is only obtainable if you buy it with Crew credits, so you have to pay real money to get access to the Motor Pass or the Battle Pass. So basically you can still grind the free items that you can get in Motor Pass, but I think it's not really worth it. You can always get the free cars, free vanities, and also free Crew credits, but it's not enough to buy another Motor Pass. But I must say it's really worth it to buy the premium pass because you get everything like the vanities, the outfits, and the special cars. But eventually, updates after updates, the Motor Pass can be obtainable with bucks, but it's still really expensive. I think it's like 2 million bucks if you want to get the access to premium Motor Pass. But then in Season 10, they removed the Motor Pass system because I know it's really controversial. And they tried to focusing on the Crew Motorfest. They decided to make the previous Motor Pass vehicles and vanities to be viable in the game. But then in the Crew Motorfest, yeah, we never see Motor Pass system ever again, which changed into the main stage progression. And I must say I quite miss the Motor Pass grind because, you know, the main stage rewards is kind of a bit, you know, in my opinion. You only can get cars, vanities, and titles. Yeah, titles, which everyone really cares, right? Well, no, they don't care about titles. The Black Panther Nissan Skyline R34 is probably one of the most popular summit cars that all the players really want to get, and one of the most weighted cars in the Prestige shop, and we finally have them in Season 6, and it's now obtainable from the Prestige shop. So you have to grind like 4,000 points, 5,000 points, and then you can get your hands on the Black Panther Nissan Skyline R34. However, there is like a bit of controversy behind the Black Panther Nissan Skyline R34 when the summit happens in the Black Panther summit month. So Pants is trying to obtain his own car from the summit. Yeah, he's trying to grind the summit, and I think he's already like completing the summit and got the platinum spot. However, the developers gave the Nissan Skyline R34 Black Panther edition for free, and it's only for Black Panther himself. And this sparks a lot of outrage by the player base, because not only Theo got their hands of his own car early because it got gifted by the developers, but also Pants is already grinding the summit and finish at the platinum spot. And then Theo felt guilty because yeah, he should just give away one spot for another players. I don't know what happened with the outcome, if Theo is dropped down to gold spot, or maybe there's other player got the the 10,000 spot. But now you can finally get your hands on the Nissan Skyline Black Panther edition because it's already buyable in the Prestige shop. So grind those cars because the car is so good. Because the car is so good, it has a spatial paint and probably closest to meta in Shooter 2. Try it. Grand Race modifiers is one of the Grand Race features that got added in Season 6. However, a lot of players dislike the idea of these Grand Race modifiers. Either it's because it's boring and a few vehicle selection that we can use. We can only use a specific vehicles that's related to the main stage weekly theme. And what's worse, every Saturday we will always have a full modifiers for 24 hours. So yeah, this is why the Grand Race modifiers is a terrible idea and locks a lot of players to, use other cars. And some certain content creators, decided to rage bait the community and say the Grand Race modifier for the main stage vehicles is a good idea. Apparently, it's not. Because of how few the vehicle option that we can use in a Grand Race, and people will get bored very easily. I think the worst one is that the main stage Grand Race modifiers that we got is only using bikes for an entire 24 hours or maybe entire day. Yeah, that's really a bad decision and the game got cooked. No wonder a lot of people don't like Season 6 is thanks to the Grand Race modifiers. The funniest thing they added for the Grand Race modifiers is when they adding the April Fool's modifiers, and I'm quite enjoying that one. And probably some others didn't like this Grand Race modifiers too much. But for myself and my friends, this is a chaotic experience and really fun experience. Even though I kind of disagree with, the modifiers that you have to use some specific vehicles or cars. Mazda Laguna Seca Raceway is probably one of the most iconic racetrack in United States. It's used for like IMSA racing, I remember it's used for MotoGP, and many other motorsport disciplines. That's why it's one of the most iconic racetrack for all the motorsports out there. And yes, in the Crew franchise, we actually have a Mazda Laguna Seca as well, since the Crew 1 and also appears in the Crew 2. However, in the Crew franchise, they butchered the Laguna Seca layout. One of the most infamous reason of why Laguna Seca layout in the Crew franchise is so weird and funny, take a look at this Laguna Seca corkscrew corner. Yep, it feels so flat. And also the Laguna Seca feels so flat compared to any other racing games. And this is one of the example in Project Cars 2 for the Laguna Seca corkscrew. And this is from a 20 years old racing games, Gran Turismo 4. Yeah, even in Gran Turismo 4, Laguna Seca layout is much better than the Laguna Seca layout from the Crew franchise. And what's worse, there's no pit entry. Like, how they messed up so bad for the Laguna Seca Raceway? But sadly, Laguna Seca Raceway in the Crew 2 is unusable, but at least you can still make your own custom routes or custom circuits in Laguna Seca by using the race creator. I think maybe it's related to licensing issues, because it's not related to Mazda licensing, but it's related to the WeatherTech or IMSA. So I think that's why. So that's why we didn't have any official event in Mazda Laguna Seca for the Crew 2. So apparently, this hashtag FairPlayTCM things were blowing up thanks to this third-party software that can make you use wheel mode and clutch on controller, which makes the game will think you are using a steering wheel devices. And these tools were only accessible if you play Motorfest on PC platform. So definitely PlayStation and Xbox players got a lot of disadvantages because they didn't have the access to use these tools. Unless you have a proper steering wheel and a shifter/clutch setup for your consoles. Like wheel mode and clutch mode is already available since like the Crew 2, and you can get access to it by using like third-party software. Either it's UCR or a software called A Broken TC2. Yeah, that's the name of the software, I'm not joking. And there's other like clutch mode that can emulate into the controller that the game will think that you use a edge shifter or a steering wheel. So basically, wheel mode can make you steer your car very precise like you are using a steering wheel but on controller. Using a wheel mode wasn't as easy as you might be thinking because you have to be very gentle while controlling your car. And definitely you have to practice a lot to steer your car while using it. And for clutch mode, because if you use a controller, you cannot have clutch in the game because the clutch button is not available to be bind in your controller unless you have a proper gear shifter hardware for your wheel setup. And yes, clutch can help your car shift much quicker than before. Especially it can make older car faster than before and it got no shift delay while using it. Hashtag FairPlayTCM happens between like Season 1 and Season 2 of the Crew Motorfest. So basically like this, third-party software is already usable since the Crew 2. However, in the Crew Motorfest, because it's the most popular games of the franchise and has a lot of new players and a lot of new competitive players in the game, it sparks a lot of drama thanks to this hashtag FairPlayTCM. So a lot of people speculating that this third-party software is a so-called cheats or a cheat software. I'm probably one of the guys that really didn't care much about this hashtag FairPlayTCM drama because I just don't care. I just want to have fun in the game and just want to race. So basically this hashtag FairPlayTCM drama, just like a lot of arguments. There's a lot of like, discussion about the wheel mode situation and the clutch mode situation in the Crew Motorfest. Basically just like, a riot in the community thanks to this hashtag FairPlayTCM drama. However, the developers acknowledge these issues and finally they will adding like, a proper wheel mode into the game for Season 3. And yes, in Season 3, we finally managed to get the wheel mode built into the game, which is called the direct mode, and a special steering sensitivity slider and also steering max lock sliders added into the game. So yeah, everyone's rejoiced and hashtag FairPlayTCM never happened again until someone just bring up about clutch has a huge advantage. But eventually in Season 6, they try to rebalancing about the gear shift for the cars that has a huge advantage with clutch. So yeah, the clutch mode is kind of a bit pointless for now in Season 6 because the developers just nerf it and trying to rebalancing the gear shift with the automatic players or maybe the sequential players. So yeah, that's that about the hashtag FairPlayTCM drama. That's how I try to summarize because I know there's a lot of drama that I missed because I was trying to summarize this topic for the iceberg perfectly. The Crew 1 funny physics. So this thing can happen every time you just like transition after cutscenes or when the cutscenes happen. For example, like this, you can just like flip your cars in a cutscene and then after you get into the gameplay, your car will just like crash out. Or maybe the funny clip from Kuru, where in the background there is like a spinning planes in the cutscene. So basically, yeah, the Crew 1 cutscene physics sometimes can be funny. And yeah, I was really entertained by the Crew 1 thanks to that. Custom show is broken and rigged. So you remember the time when custom show is broken? I think it's like in Season 2 when they adding like, a day 1 patch for Season 2 because, the Xbox user, PlayStation users has a lot of lags when they playing Gran race. And for the PC players has a huge memory leak when they playing Gran race or just when they trying to access the game. So the developers decided to release another patch to fix the optimization issues, especially for the lag spikes in consoles and also the memory leaks for PC. And also they scheduled a maintenance as well. But however, after the maintenance is finished, the custom show is not accessible. So we cannot claim our rewards from the previous week, and we cannot submit our cars. So every time we submit our cars or try to collect the rewards, it will disconnect you or kicks you out of the game. But then these issues got fixed, I think like a day after or maybe 2 days after that, and you can just like submit your cars and collect your previous custom show rewards. And then in season 4, custom show is broken again, because usually in custom show you can just like upvote your cars every day on 24 hours. So basically like if you vote your cars on first day, you can vote it again tomorrow on Friday. So in season 4, you cannot upvote your cars daily, except when people is already voting for your cars in custom show. Like for example, your friends find your car and they upvoted your cars, and then tomorrow you can basically just upvote your cars every day. Basically, if someone didn't vote for your cars and you are the only one who upvotes for your car, well, you won't get the platinum rewards for the custom show. And then in season 5, this is where a lot of people is rigging the custom show, because you can see like in season 5, every week you will always see people got 70 votes on PC, and that never happened before. Yeah, 70 votes maybe it could happen in PlayStation, but on PC it never happened before. And then yeah, all the top 10 in the podium spots has, you know, like 50 plus votes or 30 plus votes. So yeah, that's a lot of rigging to do. The rigging happens because people is already know about the patterns on like every time you submit your cars, it will appears like every 5 to 10 minutes depending on which style it is. So yeah, that's why custom show is rigged, because they know the spawn patterns for the car that got submit in custom show, and people can just like buy the cars, because buy the cars can get you vote, and tell other people that hey, vote for my cars please, or just buy the cars so I can get free votes from all of you. And that's what happened with the custom show rigging. Oh, but in season 6, are they fixing these issues about the custom show rigging? Oh, for fuck's sake, they actually still rigging this custom show on season 6, even though they already tried to patch it, but well, it failed. Because yeah, I see a lot of them are just like having 20 votes, this one has 16 votes. Yeah, because it's really noticeable that everyone is using the same Bentley, so basically this is still rigged. Well, it's still possible, but you have to be patient to wait for those cars to spawn in the custom show tile. If I remember correctly, my buddy Splash told me that even you're waiting for 2 hours and you previously just submit your cars, it won't appear. So yeah, the RNG works, but if you have patience, I think you can wait for longer. And you can rig the custom show. Yeah, it can still possible to rig it, but it's a bit harder. If you guys didn't know, the background of the motorsport playlist in the Crew Motorfest is actually Max Verstappen himself. And yes, Max Verstappen is one of my favorite Formula 1 drivers. Always been a fan of him since 2015, I guess. And because Red Bull and the Crew has a special partnership, we already have Max Verstappen reference in the Crew 2 when they added the Red Bull RB14 into the game. And other than that, we also have the Daniel Ricciardo Red Bull RB13, and also the exclusive Red Bull RB14 Disruption Edition. I think this is the closest for Ivory Tower that can get Max Verstappen into the game. Also, we have the RB18 Max Verstappen car for the 2022 Formula 1 season. And in Season 6 update, they added the Red Bull RB20, which got Max Verstappen 4 times consecutive Drivers' Championship. I think Max Verstappen should be in the game, but because Max Verstappen is still in contract with EA Sports, so that's why we only have Yuki Tsunoda in Red Bull Podcast. And also, this Red Bull suit is probably based on Max Verstappen racing overalls. Yeah. Or maybe this helmet can be related to it as well. Prestige Shop means FOMO is gone? Not entirely sure, because when Prestige Shop got introduced back in Season 5, they're adding like the Season 1 and Season 2, summit content for everyone that missed the Platinum rewards, for example, like the Vanities and then the Summit cars. However, in Season 6, we only got the Season 3 Summit Platinum exclusive items, like the Vanities and the cars. This got me thinking, are they trying to adding the custom show items as well in Prestige Shop or not? This is also the same question by a lot of people, because some of us may be missing the platinum spot thanks to the rigging in the custom show, or maybe because we submit our cars late, we just drop down to gold, or maybe didn't even submit our cars in the custom show, so we cannot enjoy the free items that we can get from the platinum. Because there's a lot of exclusive vanities that is only available to get from the custom show if you finish on platinum or maybe gold. The FOMO for the Prestige Shop is still there because we're still missing some of the custom show items in the shop. Well, I mean, the custom show is really a good idea because you can get the Black Panther Nissan Skyline R34, which is one of the most demanding car to get in the Crew Motorfest summits. So in my opinion, even though Prestige Shop is trying to remove the FOMO system of the game, but if they didn't add the items from the custom show that everyone missing out, the FOMO is still there. There is a lot of like real world vehicle brands in the Crew franchise. For example, we have the Bugatti, and then we have like Citroen, and then we have like this licensed boats. We have Dodge, we have Ferrari, we have Ford, and even some real-world planes available in the Crew games. But if you look closely in all the vehicle lists available on the Crew Motorfest or maybe in the Crew 2, you also have like, an unlicensed vehicle. Same also goes to the Ivory Tower brand, which only specially made available in the Crew Motorfest. Which you probably can see like all the Ivory Tower cars kinda inspired by, a real world counterpart. Like the Ogmios is probably inspired by the Mustang. The IVT Falcon is probably inspired by the Can-Am Maverick or Polaris RZR. And there's also unlicensed brand that is available in the Crew franchise that consists every vehicle type in the game or in the franchise. And the brand that I meant is called Proto. So it has helicopters, Alpha GP cars, a buggy, and then there's also like a normal hypercar like this one, the Proto Flashback, a monster trucks, a hot rods, and then including a boats. So yeah. And also creators probably just like a fictional cars made by some designer that is only available in the Crew Motorfest. For example, like this one, it's made by Kaizil Salem, KS. You probably know him from, Need for Speed game, that he always made like a wild, crazy looking body kits. Same also for Yazid Design, who always like, doing some car renders that you probably seen on the internet. So yeah, this is what I like about the Crew franchise. Like, it separates, real world cars, and also it has a fictional cars available to be used in the game. So it reminds the player that this is only a video game. Some of the cars in the Crew Motorfest and the Crew 2 has a really good engine sound. But it can be other way around. For example, like in the Crew Motorfest, it sounds really good because they fixing the engine sound, but in the Crew 2, it sounds not really that good. Or maybe the other way, which means like in the Crew 2, the engine sound sounds really, really realistic, but in the Crew Motorfest, it sounds so generic. One of the example is this Lamborghini Murcielago in the Crew 2. Yeah, it's not really that good engine sound in the Crew 2. However, in the Crew Motorfest, it sounds really good. And for the downgraded engine sound from the Crew 2 to the Crew Motorfest is the Gordon Murray T50. This is the engine sound of the Gordon Murray T50 from the Crew 2. Yeah, it sounds so beautiful. However, in Motorfest, it sounded like a generic V12. Yeah, they basically copy-paste the Ferrari engine sound, but they have a high pitch. I think there's other example for the cars that sounds really terrible in the Crew 2, but in the Crew Motorfest, they fix the sounds, or maybe the other way around, like it sounds really good before in the Crew 2, but they ruin it in the Crew Motorfest. There's a lot of examples, but I just give you some of them. Guttering technique is a thing in the Crew Motorfest, and a lot of people using it to make your car corner better, or just like, easily tackle corner better than just like using brakes and then turn. It's not really an exploit, but it's probably a gameplay mechanics that got brought up into the game. And guttering technique is very famously used by Takumi in Initial D anime. So, on how guttering works, you must put two wheels of your car on the off-road or the side of the road, and the other two wheels still intact on the asphalt depending on which turn you are going on the corners. And this saves a lot of time on cornering, so you don't bother to just like use the brakes and then corner. But also guttering technique can be awkward. For example, like, oh yeah, this is a braking point, I should just brake. Yeah, you can easily just brake and then just gutter. You can do that as well, or just like automatically gutter to corner faster. But that's how it is. That's the gameplay mechanic brought up in the Crew Motorfest. Some cars can gutter really good, but sometimes it doesn't gutter so good, even though it's a really good car. Like one of the example, the NSX. NSX is really good for handling, acceleration, but if you hit the gutters with NSX, it slides too much. So, was guttering technique is in the Crew 2 as well? The answer is not really. Because in the Crew 2, if you're using the same guttering technique with, two wheels on the dirt path and the other wheels still intact to the road, it doesn't affect much. Because your car is still speeding and it doesn't even slow you down on corners. But I guess in the Crew 2 it's not really that necessary to use a guttering technique. Probably you guys didn't know there's a lot of long race in the Crew 1. And one of them can took you nearly 4 hours of your IRL time. I'm not joking. That event is called the Landmark Tour. And we already know why this event took a long time to complete. Because basically, you touring the landmark all across the USA of the Crew 1 with using a rally car. Yeah, using a dirt spec car, which is probably really slow. And not the best way to do, just circling around the USA on the Crew 1. I think it should be fast if you're using like the perf spec or maybe circuit spec compared to use dirt spec, because the top speed is limited and it's really slow compared to any other specs. There's also like events called Showtime, which can took you for like 2+ hours. Yeah, I'm not joking. There's a lot of race that can take you hours and hours back in the Crew 1. But sadly in the Crew 2, the longest race that we can have is New York, which can roughly took you like 23 minutes to 30 minutes, I guess. If you have a good pace, maybe 24 or 23 minutes is possible in New York events. So basically they downgraded the longest race for the Crew 2. I think because a lot of people complaining that, oh yeah, the race is so long in the Crew 1, they should nerf it. So basically the developers just put New York as the longest event in the Crew 2. The other one is probably the Detroit Hypercar event, which can took you like 10 to 12 minutes. But yeah, New York is still one of the longest events in the Crew 2. And then in the Crew Motorfest, the longest race got downgraded as well, which roughly can only took you 12 minutes with slow cars, or maybe it can be 9 minutes or sub 10 minutes if you're using faster car like hypercar, racing class, or maybe Alpha GP. The event is called Liberty Territory on the mainland Oahu, and you can get access to this event on the Liberty Walk playlist. But eventually they adding another long events which you touring around the Maui Island, which is the Maui Expedition Tour event, which roughly can took you for maybe like less than 10 minutes or maybe 10 minutes plus, depending on the cars you use, maybe, or if you have good enough pace and less skill issue. So basically, the longest race in the Crew franchise got downgraded on every new game released. Yeah, we should need more longest race in the Crew games. We missed the 2 hours race or 1 hour race from the Crew 1, but sadly we never got them again because I know a lot of casuals is complaining about it. Or maybe the reasons is because the developers want the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest to be a casual friendly game. I guess that's why. The Crew Motorfest should be the Crew 2 DLC, but eventually the developers just made it as a separate game. Because I know a lot of people is speculating that back in like 2020 or 2021, they said like, oh yeah, the Crew 2 will have a map expansion or a DLC, which is set in Hawaii. And the DLC is called the Project Orlando. We already seen like there's a lot of concept art and some teaser of the Hawaiian island for Project Orlando. But however, Ivory Tower cancelled the idea that Project Orlando will become the Crew 2 DLC. And they decided to make it as a separate game because there's a lot of reasons. One of the most obvious reason is because the community or the player base is really unhappy with how the vehicle physics or how the car handles in the Crew 2. And even the developers just like, yeah, they're really unhappy with how the vehicle physics work in the Crew 2. And the other one is probably related to the developing. So, because they're trying to make it as the Crew 2 DLC, they're trying to make like the completion and the progression to be carried over to the Project Orlando. But sadly, it didn't work because like the progression system, the story, and the completion is very hard-coded in the Crew 2. So the only way they can rework the codes is by making another game. So that's one of the reasons why the Crew 2 Project Orlando DLC got cancelled and become the Crew Motorfest instead. But fun fact for all of you, before it's called the Crew Motorfest, it was called the Crew Motor Camp. And yeah, that's a weird name, I must say. But I guess Motorfest is much better. So basically that's the story of how, you know, the Crew Motorfest is basically the Crew 2 DLC, but the project got cancelled and it became a separate game. And it's much better than the Crew 2. And it's the popular game of the franchise. There's a lot of movie references in the Crew franchise. Either it's maybe from the Crew 2 or maybe the Crew Motorfest. So in the Crew Motorfest, we have a special dedicated playlist for like a movie, which is called the Hollywood Action. The scene 1 can be related to Italian Job because using the Mini Cooper. The scene 2, it's using the white Dodge Challenger, which kind of reminds of the Vanishing Point movie. I don't know about the first job, but it can be related to Mission Impossible because, you know, the bike scenes can be related to it. The scene 4 can be related to the Magnum PI, thanks to the iconic Ferrari 308 GTS. And Magnum PI sets in Hawaii. I don't know about the scene 5 related to any other movie, but it can be related to the Point Break because Terry's friend, Keanu, and they're also doing extreme sports. In Season 6, they're using the Shelby GT500, which it can be related to Gone in 60 Seconds because in Gone in 60 Seconds, Nick Cage is using the Shelby GT500, which is called the Eleanor, in the most iconic movie car chase scene. I don't know about the Season 7, but okay. Season 8 Getaway, It can be related to James Bond movie because yeah, we use the Aston Martin DBS, which is the main cover of this playlist. And then we have to switch to, I think we're using like boats and plane as well. The premiere, I don't know about this, but this is basically a checkpoint run with using the Asus hypercar by every tower. I think there's also like the movie or TV shows can be related to the summits or maybe on other playlists. Because this particular event in the Vintage Garage playlist can be related to Knight Rider because we use the Pontiac Firebird on this event. So basically in this event on the lighting, it kind of reminds me of the Stranger Things. So yeah, it's the mix of a Knight Rider and Stranger Things on this particular Vintage Garage event. I probably missed something, but that's what I got from the Crew Motorfest. I think there's a lot of like movie or TV show reference in the Crew 2 as well, and it can be related to the summit or maybe an event in the game. Well, yeah, this one is pretty obvious. It's a Back to the Future reference. And also this one, the Electric City, reminds me kind of a bit like Tron movie. Like look at the bikes, like the blue neon is really reminds me of Tron movie. This one with the combi bus and ghost hunting is probably from Scooby-Doo. I think there's other movie references related to the outfit of the game that is available in the Crew 2. For example, this imported souvenir jacket can be related to varsity jacket that used by Baby Driver in Baby Driver movie. What the hell? This probably looks kinda like a Judge Dredd outfit from Judge Dredd. And this stuntman outfit is probably from Ryan Gosling Drive movie. The professional outfit, yeah, it's typical James Bond tuxedo. I think that's that because, you know, there's other outfits that is really unnecessary, but I think this outfit is never obtainable anymore because it's more pass exclusive. The Crew games is always a competitive racing game since the Crew 1 and also the Crew 2 because back in the day, we always have a PvP mode. Even though in the Crew 2 the PvP mode is kind of a bit late, it wasn't available on launch, but they managed to add them back in 2019. So yeah, back in like the Crew 1 and the Crew 2, we usually have like a ranked system, so it can have a lot of competition on the player base. So for the player who really want more competition, because you know they were very good at the game, they always hosting a tournament, like a PvP tournament back in the Crew 1, or maybe like escape tournament in the Crew 2 or time attack tournament. So they decided to host a tournament with some prizes on the board, so it can get the players to interest to compete with the tournament and get a lot of attention by the community. For example, like in the Crew 1, we have like a PvP tournament called the Crew 1 Eliminator. Yeah, because it was ages ago and we cannot get access to the Crew 1 anymore. And then in the Crew 2, I think there's like an escape tournament, time attack tournament. One of the most notable one, and it's still currently running, is the Major Skill Issue Championship by Dryminator. So shout out to him for still hosting the competitive tournament for the Crew 2. However, in the Crew Motorfest, because they trying to make the game more casual friendly, even though the Crew Motorfest is one of the most popular games in the franchise, so invites a lot of people from other racing games community, especially for all the competitive people. They didn't have any proper PvP mode. So the only PvP mode that we have in the Crew Motorfest is Demo Royale, no one's playing that, and a Grand Race. So it's really hard to run a perfect tournament in the Crew Motorfest. For example, like yes, you can make a tournament in Grand Race, however, the most possible one is probably like a time attack, tournament championship. And yes, in fact, because the Crew Motorfest is one of the most popular racing games that we currently have in this generation, we actually have like a competitive scene tournament in this game. For example, one of the most notable one is the TCM League and Militia Gaming tournament that he usually hosted like on every season, and a lot of players is already competing with the tournament with a large amount of prizes in the board for the players who doing well or winning the tournament. So that's why it got a lot of people interested or a lot of attention for the Crew Motorfest tournament compared to the tournament from the previous games. because the Crew Motorfest is very popular today. I know some of us didn't know that the Crew 2 has a proper story campaign, but it's non-linear compared to the story mode we have in the Crew 1. Yeah, because I'm playing the Crew 2 since day 1, so the only things that I do is just like, you know, grinding the events or maybe just doing the story mode. Because day 1 of the Crew 2 is such bare bones, and the story mode in the Crew 2 is very forgotten by a lot of people. Or maybe because, you know, a lot of players purchase the games when it's on sale back in like 2020 or maybe 2021, or even the biggest discount ever in 2024 last year, which only cost the game $1 only. So majority of the players just care to do the summit from the Crew 2, or maybe just doing something else like grinding the events or maybe doing some PvP stuff, because you have to reach some certain progression for these each out of 4 vehicle category, and if you're already reaching 50% on that category, you will be challenged by the boss for that category, and after you winning the boss race, there's a cutscene and they will give you a free vehicle. And a lot of people didn't even progress to complete the boss event or maybe the finale of the game, which is the Live Extreme Series finale. Because if you want to unlock the Live Extreme Series finale or the last event of the Crew 2, you must complete 4 of each discipline's boss race. And also like the cutscene is very forgotten as well compared to like in the Crew 1, which we have like a special CGI effect cutscene compared to like in the Crew 2, which is just built into the game, or maybe just, you know, some typical cinematic cutscene. TCM Developers Challenge is a thing since maybe Season 6. So it's basically developers giving us a challenge for the players to just beat the time, take a photo, or maybe just doing something else related to your skills. What I'm actually confused about the TCM Developers Challenge, they didn't even announce the winner or maybe giving the prize to the winners of the Developers Challenge. Yeah. But probably some of us still remember when the developers is hosting this challenge, the Endless Drive Challenge in Season 5, where the challenge is just basically drive for how long you can be. So basically you have to like pick your teams, and then you just have to drive for how long you can be, and then it will accumulate the mileage that you have to your teams, and the highest mileage team will receive a special prizes. For example, like a PS5 Pro, if I remember, a crew credits. I think there's also one prize for the MVP or the person who gets the most mileage of all of us in the Crew Motorfest for that Endless Drive Challenge, which is like a TCM PC, if I remember. But yeah, that's basically one of the developers challenge that is quite popular in the community. Race Editor or Race Creator is already in the Crew franchise since the Crew 1. However, in the Crew 1, it's called a free drive challenge. So basically you have to put like checkpoints, finish line, starting line, and then you're just good to go, and you can race your own routes with your friends with the vehicles that you select on doing the free drive challenge. And the purpose of the free drive challenge is basically for the summit contest. And so that's why a lot of people grinding the summit contest thanks to the free drive challenge. So because the points accumulates of your driving mileage on the free drive challenge. And then in the Crew 2, they finally brought back the Race Editor, which is called the Race Creator. Yeah, such an original name. Which we finally can create our own routes, and it took us like maybe 5 years to be added into the game. Yeah, that took a long time to get these features back in the Crew 2. However, the Race Creator that we have in the Crew 2 is much more advanced than in the Crew 1. So basically we can set our time of day, and then we can just like choose enable traffic, pedestrian, or we can enable collision for the events that we create. And also you can share your created events to the community, which there is a lot of like fan favorite race that is created by the players. So yeah, we can just like creating our own events with our imagination, but however these features wasn't even available for the Crew Motorfest. I just hope the developers can adding the race creators back to the Crew Motorfest as soon as possible, because there's a lot of potential in the Crew Motorfest that we can create our own routes with the roads that we haven't driven yet, or maybe some off-road paths that we haven't got yet in the the playlist, or maybe the Gran race. So yeah, IVT, please bring back race creator to TCM. In the Crew 2, there is a lot of speed glitch that you can do, and a lot of them already got patched. For example, like this famous A-Core video, but however, it's already like 4 years ago and already got patched. And I think one of the most notable one and very recent is the infinite speed glitch by using the GB plane. So this video is the tutorial on how to do or demonstrate how this infinite speed glitch work with using the plane. And also shout out to you, Marquinho24. So basically you have to use drag car and then boost while doing 90-degree turn, then switch to your plane immediately with the fast favorite features. And you must use that GB plane. And then after you switch to the GB plane, your game will get stuck, but your speed says a 719 or maybe 720 kilometers per hour. And this makes a lot of people exploiting this glitch for the speed trap skills, and also a lot of people doing the same things for the summit skills if we got a speed trap with using this speed glitch. Like, yeah. I don't think Ivory Tower will bother about this because yeah, they're already done with the Crew 2, but yeah, that's one of the most recent or notable speed glitch that we have in the Crew 2 right now. And for in the Crew Motorfest, I think there's also like a speed glitch for doing speed trap or something, but I forgot about that, or probably they already got patched. But one of the most notable one for the Motorfest speed glitch is utilizing a performance parts. I will demonstrate it to you on this footage on how you do the speed glitch on the free roam. Yeah, it's only available for free roam and not available for event or maybe Gran race. I think everyone already know about the speed glitch in the Crew Motorfest. So for my example, I will use the Honda NSX because it's one of the cars that affected to the glitch. Okay, let's drive it. Let's test drive it and let's test the top speed of this thing. So NSX, here we go. I think we should go the other way. Yeah, I think we should go the other way. Then we get a boost. So, okay, it only top out like 380, 378 for the Honda NSX if it's fully upgraded. However, if I try to remove my performance upgrades for my tire, it will reduce my performance level from 750 to 707. And I think it increased the top speed to 362, and if I try to fully upgrade it, it turns into 361, but increasing the acceleration, braking, and lateral G. Right, it doesn't matter, but we remove the tires, and we will see a huge top speed difference with this one. So I still don't know why, like, it only works if you try to remove the tires performance upgrades of your car to get much more speed or much more top speed for some of these cars. So yeah, if you use nitros, it will gain a lot of speed. See, it can do 395. It can do the top speed of the Liberty Walk NSX, fully upgraded. But if you remove the tire upgrades of your car, it can do much better than the normal NSX. But I think you can fully test it full potential if you have like slipstream buddies or drafting buddies, because I remember that thanks to Rhino the Raccoon, he showed me that if you use a slipstream using this speed glitch on the Honda NSX, the NSX can do like 400 kilometers per hour. But if you do it solo, it can do like 396 or 95. And I'm using Nitro Candy set as well. Yeah, I still don't get it why, like, it only affects the stock tires performance upgrades for this speed glitch. But if you use like a stock motor core, stock gearbox, I think it won't work. And other than that, it not only worked for the Honda NSX for this speed glitch, But maybe you saw somewhere in the internet or in the YouTube that this Chevy delivery truck can do 400 kilometers per hour if you're using slipstream and using the same speed glitch method. But I recommend to all of you to use a slipstream partner or slipstream buddies when you're trying to do this speed glitch method. And it works, trust me. Well, at least the Crew Motorfest speed glitches wasn't very, obvious compared to like in the Crew 2. And shout out to Rhino the Raccoon who told me about the TCM speed glitch and he showed me on my stream. I still remember that. And shout out again for Marquinho and Acor for providing us the speed glitch in the Crew 2. Demo League is a tournament hosted by Sidwatch and it features a lot of streamers, for example like Kingdom 12 and then Sir Fixivo and Rhino the Raccoon, and maybe some of them that I forgot to mention. So basically, all the streamers have to create a team to compete with each other in Demo Royale. I think there's like a lot of rounds, and it also has an accumulate point system. And Sidwatch already hosted 2 different Demo Leagues edition. And what's funny, the winner is always the same on those 2 different seasons of Demo League tournament, which is the man himself, Mr. Fixel. Even though in Season 2 Fixel has a different team, I guess we already know that Fixel and his team relax to sweating Demo Royale too much, I guess. But yeah, imagine in Season 3 and we still get the same winner. Yeah, we can prove that Fixel is the GOAT for Demo Royale. But yeah, props to him and shout out to him. And maybe shout out to Sidwatch as well to, making Demo Royale much more engaging to people, because not a lot of people really cares about Demo Royale and a lot of people really cares about Grand Race. Because Ubisoft games always trying to referencing other Ubisoft games in their Ubisoft games. One of the example is the Driver San Francisco. We know we love this game, right? And they're trying to, make some references in the Crew franchise as well. Like from Ubisoft Racing games to another Ubisoft Racing game. Like back in the Crew 1, we have a special livery for Driver San Francisco, which is like a logo and probably an image silhouette of John Tanner and his Dodge Challenger. And then in the Crew 2, we finally have the Dodge Challenger that is driven by John Tanner in Driver San Francisco. And the other reference of the Driver San Francisco in the Crew 2 is this, the Driver San Francisco Vanity Bundles. I didn't know this exists, or maybe I forgot. But it's basically just, you can buy the Dodge Challenger 1970 with some other vanity stuff. So it's basically all gold or all yellow. But yeah, that's basically the Driver San Francisco reference in the Crew franchise. Ivory Tower always accidentally leaking their own upcoming vehicles that's going to be added in the game. I think it always happened since like the Crew 2, and also they did the same thing for the Crew Motorfest. One of the most notable example about this accidental leaking cars that will be coming to the game is when they released the main stage trailer back in 2023, and they leaked the Nissan Skyline GTR R32, which it finally got added in Season 5. And then there's a Rimac Nevera, which finally we got it in Season 5, an Audi RS6 Avant, which we finally got it in Season 4, and also there's one missing cars that we haven't got it in the Crew Motorfest, which is the Nissan Titan Warrior concept. Yeah, this car is already in Forza Horizon series, and probably it will be a really nice rally raid car to drive in the Crew Motorfest. I hope so. Ivory Tower, when is the Nissan Titan Warrior concept released in the Crew Motorfest? I think that's the only car they accidentally leak, but never comes to the game. Remember the time in the Crew Motorfest when we got an 8 hours of maintenance? I think it was back in like Season 2. So at the beginning, the developers was expecting the maintenance to be done for 2 hours only. But because the developers screwed up big time, the maintenance got extended to 6 hours. And in total, we have 8 hours maintenance. That is really wild. Yeah, I still don't know how they managed to screw up big time. But I guess they screwed up with the coding and maybe ruined some of the game mechanics or something. I know a lot of people in Grand Race probably got rammed by someone or probably got accidentally murdered by someone, because these things always happen in Grand Race every time. It's still quite hard to tell that if this person is just intentionally ramming or just properly a desync. Because yeah, I have the same situation with some people that I race in Gran race, like this guy. I don't know if that's just basically desync or blatantly ramming me for no reason. Or maybe sometimes desync situation can be happen like this, which me and my friend Splash is tangling with each other off. This always happen every time in Gran race, and what's worse, I always got still position even though I'm in first place, far away from the guy in second place, and it turns out I dropping to second place and the guy behind me got first place. That always happen every time in Gran race, and it's really annoying. Well, I guess it's not really happening to all of you because some of you living in in a great continent like Europe and US, because I live in somewhere in Southeast Asia and I have a shit internet, desync always happen to me. And like ramming and desync can create a lot of drama in the community, especially for the the competitive community of the Crew Motorfest. But yeah, desync should be fixed in the Crew Motorfest because it's ruining the people experience. Ruff and Porsche always has a problem with each other when it comes to licensing contract, especially for racing video games. So if the racing games want to feature Porsche cars, we cannot feature Ruff cars or maybe a Jimbala cars. If you know, you know. But if you really want to feature Ruff or maybe Jimbala cars in your video game, you cannot feature Porsche. These things, however, works very different with the Crew franchise. So back in like the Crew 1, we usually have like Ruff cars, for example like the Ruff RT35, which resemblance of the Porsche 911, and then the Ruff 3400K, resemblance of the Porsche Cayman, and the last one is the Ruff CTR3, resemblance of the Porsche Carrera GT. We got Ruff in racing video games because Porsche had an exclusive license with some certain video game company called EA Games. So Porsche can only be featured in racing games that made by EA, especially Need for Speed franchise. However, in 2016, Porsche exclusive license for EA Games was already expired. So every racing games can use the Porsche license. So if they adding the Porsche car to the game, what's happening with the Ruff cars that we currently have since the Crew 1? So basically, they only adding Porsche cars for the street racing class, hypercar class, and then the off-road class like Rally and Rally Raid. But Ruff can still be appeared in the Crew franchise, but only for some certain category. For example, like the Dragster and then the Drift class. But we have a Ruff cars for Rally Raid, which is the Ruff 3400K, and also there's a Porsche car for the Rally Raid class, which is the Porsche 959. So basically, yeah, Porsche and Ruff cannot compete with each other. However, Ruff didn't have an equivalent car or resemblance car for the Porsche 959 Rally Raid. So I think that's allowed by Ruff and Porsche, I think. So basically, yeah, there's still a mystery behind it, or probably just Ivory Tower discovering a loophole behind the deal or contract with Porsche and Ivory Tower. Bigfoot is one of the most famous Easter eggs in the Crew franchise. And you probably already know that Bigfoot Easter egg, which means in GTA San Andreas, right? No, because Bigfoot actually exists in the Crew 1 and the Crew 2 as a proper Easter egg. And if I remember correctly, back in the Crew 1, you must require to find a Bigfoot for collectible rewards to get a special license plates. So yeah, that's one of the good things that the developers added back in the Crew 1. And then in the Crew 2, the Bigfoot still appears, and it's funny enough in the same location as in the Crew 1. However, it's not really necessary to find the Bigfoot in the Crew 2, but at least, yeah, it's still one of the Easter eggs, and you can still interact with the Bigfoot. Like, if you touch Bigfoot, it will run away. Or maybe you can just like take a photo with Bigfoot and then just call it a day and show it to your friends. Hey, I found Bigfoot. Yeah, we're missing like these kind of Easter eggs from the Crew Motorfest because yeah, the Crew Motorfest didn't have any wildlife in the game. In the Crew Motorfest, back in like Season 1 and Season 2, the drift physics, it works pretty fine. For example, like this, I really like to drive my Mazda MX-5 Miata drift car. It handles perfectly fine. No broken steering lock physics and everything. However, after they adding direct mode, steering sensitivity, and steering max lock. They just broke the drift physics in the Crew Motorfest, but it's not really affecting with the all-wheel drive drift car like the Mitsubishi Evo 6, Evo 9 Hoonigan, and the most obvious one, the Hoonicord. It's not really affected to the drift physics that is changed in the game thanks to the they adding the steering max lock and the direct mode. But the OG drift car, just like the Toyota Supra Drift Edition, and then the one of the OG meta, the Lamborghini Murcielago, got affected by some weird drift physics. So every time you're trying to turn your car for these OG drift cars, the car wasn't even turning. It tried to lock the steering, and you have to drift properly with using handbrakes. So you have to throw your car every time. One of the examples like this is I'm using the Lamborghini Murcielago in Gran race. And yeah, it feels boaty because I was trying to turn my car, but yeah, it doesn't let me turn because I have like a weird steering lock for my car. So basically I have to throw my car to the wall, or probably just using the handbrake plus nitro method. Like even the latest drift car has the same issues, like it didn't even turn on corners and you have to like slide it properly, but you can still go into corners very slow compared to when we're using the OG drift cars with the OG drift physics. I just hope Ivory Tower can fix the drift physics issues somewhere in the future, because I don't think a lot of people mention about this issues, but it's probably it got mentioned, but Ivory Tower didn't care about it. From time to time, New York shortcut always got nerfed, especially one of the most iconic New York jump cut where you just, I think it's like an 82%, and then you have to go to the cliffs and then jump your car straight in and aiming for the checkpoint. I think it was back in like 2022, it finally got patched. But you can still try to cut the corners properly and trying to get it to the next checkpoint, and it's still relating to do the jump. Because the previous New York iconic jump cut shaves a lot of time when you're trying to do the New York hypercar event. I mean, yeah, you can still just like cut the corners, but it took you a long time to do it. So this decision by the developers is very questionable by the community, especially for all of you who trying to get the world record on New York event. This is probably one of the most iconic glitch that you probably ever experienced back in the Crew 1. And this glitch is also very famous thanks to Black Panther, that he already made the video on how you exploring Mexico in the Crew 1. And he made the video like in 2016. So basically in the Crew 1 there is like American and Mexican border in the bottom of the map. And the most specific American and Mexican border that you can glitch out to explore Mexico is the bottom left of the map, which is in the California and the Mexican border. So if you try to fast travel to the Californian and Mexican border in the bottom left side of the map, you will spawn behind the border and behind the wall. And this is quite funny that the developers didn't even fix this since the Crew 1 got launched. And after the game got shut down, it never been fixed. And I think Theo is already demonstrated in the video that every 3 to 5 seconds, if you're trying to just like go straight into Mexico and trying to explore, the game will teleport you back to the previous spot that you fast traveled, which is still behind the US border. As it says on the video, he said if you try to utilize using the photo mode or the map, the game won't teleport you back to the location you previously in. So in the video, he tried to explore the Mexico with using the photo mode method. So every 3 to 5 seconds, he just like going around and trying to explore the Mexico, he always try to press the photo mode. Because the game didn't think that you are outside of the map. And you have to do this every 3 to 5 seconds, every 5 seconds, and then photo mode. And basically you can explore the land of the Mexico. I mean, it exists, but there's nothing there. It's basically just like an empty land. But I think in the Crew 2 you can also do the same thing as well, but I think it's on like some certain area of the Mexican land that you can explore. However, if you're trying to do the same the Crew 1 glitch method, I think it's not possible. Because if you're trying to go back and forth with the photo mode or the map in the Crew 2, takes a little bit of time compared to like in the Crew 1. I don't know if the developers is planning for the Mexican DLC, we don't know. Buyable summit cars. Yeah, there's a lot of buyable summit cars that we have currently in the Crew Motorfest, or some of them can be turned into a Twitch drops or a main stage rewards. However, there's a couple of summit cars that is buyable also in the Crew 2, but it only appears for some certain times back then. Basically, the DeLorean monster trucks is the summit reward for the, the Back to the Future theme, which is this one. Yes, the summit. And also the Mazda RX-8 Thunderwave edition. Yeah, back in the Crew 2, these two summit cars are buyable. And you're probably wondering like, how is this exclusive summit cars buyable? Well, it's because the developer screwed up. So like a couple of hours later, they changed some things in the background and they decided to, lock the DeLorean and the Mazda RX-8 as a summit vehicle. So for the other buyable summit cars in a different case, it's just like this Ferrari F12 TDF and the Lamborghini Huracan Performante. Both of these cars, these Italian supercars, or shall I say hypercars, used to be a summit rewards back in the Crew 2. But now in the Crew Motorfest, the Huracan Performante and the Ferrari F12 TDF is now buyable. But you can feel the exclusive for that car when you have it in the Crew 2. However, the car wasn't that good in the Crew 2 for hypercar class. And it only cost you like 1.3 million and 1.7 million for the Ferrari. There's also a Crew 2 exclusive summit cars that is now buyable in the Crew Motorfest. I think it's the Mazda, where is it? Mazda RX-7 Shirogane edition. I will just scroll through. Oh yeah, it's all buyable. It's only 350k. Oh yeah, that's really cheap, but the car wasn't that good. Okay, there's also another one right here, which is the Chevrolet C2 2.0 edition. This used to be a Crew 2 Summit exclusive car as well, but because it's Twitch drops back then, it's now buyable for every player in the Crew Motorfest, and also costs you 350k. And I think the BMW M8 Performance is also buyable right now. But I think because I already owned it from previous summits, so yeah, I just got the car. But yeah, I think that's some of the, Crew 2 Summit exclusive cars that is buyable now in the Crew Motorfest, or it become the main stage rewards, just like the Porsche, what's it called again? The baby car. There you go, the old-timer edition. This used to be the summit cars that we have from previous weeks, I guess. Or maybe the other one can be in the main stage legacy, just like the Porsche 911 Speedster Winter Asian Edition. It used to be a Crew 2 Summit cars. The Nissan 300 ZX Kaidu Edition is also Crew 2 exclusive Summit cars. But in the Crew Motorfest, it's now, obtainable or buyable. There is a lot of things that can make you glitching under the map on the Crew Motorfest. One of the example is like this. I can glitch through under the map in Gran race.
Just saying that a lot of me and my friends have with each other. It's like an intro. We'll just be like,
"Whoa, what the fuck is this?"
I know what the reference is.
I just sent it to the back rooms.
Where's Toyota?
Oh no! I missed a checkpoint. What?
I just fell through the world.
I did the same thing.
And now I'm just stuck falling through the world.
Is that you on top of me? What the hell?
Yes.
I think I already showed it to all of you about this moment in my Papega videos a while ago. But other than that, I think the most obvious one is if you go to the tunnel and then utilizing the photo mode, you can glitch through the tunnel and go under the map. For example, like this one. This is basically accidental. But basically, if you go under the map, you can just like discover some weird textures or weird objects that is placed under the map. So yeah, So explore it for yourself and try to do this glitch on every tunnel in the game, and you will discover something very weird. And I think there's other method as well if you're trying to use the boat and trying to go under the map by crashing the boat to the rocks or something. So there's a lot of method that can make you go under the map in the Crew Motorfest. If you guys notice, the map in the Crew 1 and the Crew 2 can be very different. Or should I say, it's downgraded in the Crew 2. One of the most notable example of this downgraded USA map in the Crew 2 is this, the Chicago Airport. Yes, in the Crew 1, the Chicago Airport exists in the game. However, in the Crew 2, they remove it and it becomes an empty land with a lot of trees or houses. Yeah, I still don't know why they make this decision. And also, if you go to the north side of Chicago, you will discover a military base in the Crew 1. But in the Crew 2, yeah, this iconic military base, it's gone from the game, or in this USA version of the map. Or you can probably check all the Crew 1 versus the Crew 2 map comparison on this video right here. So credits to Greeny, so you can check this video out to see some comparison. So yeah, check them out. I don't know why, but vehicle physics has always been a problem since maybe the Crew 1. Because maybe like in the Crew 1, the cars handles fine. However, the bike physics, just like you're driving a cars, but it's a bit janky. And then in the Crew 2, the cars handling and the physics sometimes has its own mind and not very enjoyable. However, like the bike physics, the plane physics, or maybe the boat physics is pretty fine for the Crew 2. In the Crew Motorfest, the car physics is so much better compared to like in the Crew 2. But the motorbikes physics, the plane physics, and also the boats physics, it wasn't that good compared to in the Crew 2. Or maybe for some of you, the plane physics and the boat physics are pretty fine. Yeah, it's kind of weird though, like since ever the Crew 1, we always have like a vehicle physics issues. However, a couple of days ago, the moderator of the Crew Community Discord just giving us a feedback about the motorbike physics in the Crew Motorfest. So I think in the next update or maybe future updates, they will try to fix the motorbike physics. So yeah, it's better late than never, I guess. This is very unknown by everyone that the Crew 1 has an Xbox 360 port. Yeah, because we only play the Crew 1 on PS4, Xbox One, or maybe PC. But there is an Xbox 360 version of the Crew 1. However, the game still got server shutdown in 2024 as well, with the PC and Xbox One or maybe PS4 version. But basically, the Crew 1 for Xbox 360 is very, very different because it never got a treatment just like the PC or PS4 version. So it never got the wall run update, calling all units update. There is no graphic improvements, handling improvements, or maybe quality of life improvements. So it's still stuck in like a day one version of the game for the Crew 1 in Xbox 360. So basically the Xbox 360 version of the Crew 1 develops by a different studio called Ubisoft Shanghai with collaboration with Asobo Studio. What a peculiar name. And then some of the teams from Asobo Studios split and then trying to join Ubisoft, and then it became Ubisoft Reflection. Yes, the same Ubisoft Reflection that made the Driver series. Fair PvP is not fair enough. So like in the Crew Motorfest, if you're trying to use some certain cars in Gran race, you will probably think, how is this car handled so bad? But whenever I try it in free roam or normal events, just like the playlist custom mode, it doesn't handle like this. Yes, one of the most notable cars that has this fair PvP nerf is the Mercedes AMG 1. Yeah, it handles really good in the normal events or maybe in the summits. However, in Grand Race, it can handle really weird and very understeer. Same also for the Porsche 919, because a lot of people said like, oh yeah, this is a brand new meta for hypercar. But no, it wasn't. I mean, to be fair, like in normal events, the car handles so good. However, in Grand Race, this car still got gapped by the Koenigsegg Agera R. Yeah. I mean, technically you can find a lot of big difference with the cars in, normal events, and then if you try it in Grand Race, and you will probably feel that this cars has a weird handling if you're using a fair PvP performance. So yeah, good luck finding it, because there's a lot of cars that has this weird treatment thanks to the fair PvP, which is not fair enough. If you guys didn't know, the Crew 2 should has police or cops in the game, but we already know that since ever the Crew 2 and in the Crew Motorfest, it's just the downfall for the Crew franchise, because they just had identity crisis thanks to, removing the cops, or it's not available on launch and they adding it later as not really a cops. Or should I say like the interception unit, or maybe the chase squad. However, in the Crew 2 announcement trailer, you probably seen there is a cops, but sadly we haven't got it until in 2020 when they introduced the interception unit. Like they adding a cop-esque car for like the Chevrolet Corvette C8, the BMW M8, and then like the Bugatti Chiron police car, Ford GT police car, and even like the Cadillac Escalade police car and the Ford F-150 Raptor police car. But it's not really a proper cops like we had in the Crew 1, because this is basically just like a movie scene for some TV shows that it's called The Chase. So basically we chasing some criminals as a security, not the cops. And then the same as in the Crew Motorfest, where they introduced the chase squad, and it says, yeah, they chasing some criminals even though we're not cops, but we are just like a vigilante who also, participating in the Motorfest festival. But I guess that works to add a cops back to the Crew franchise, even though the franchise has already, got identity crisis. Because back then in the Crew 1, we used to have like a cop chase, and we have like a proper PvP cops and robbers with players, and it's really entertaining. And it's basically just like a hot pursuit mode, but from Wish. But it's really fun, trust me. But back then, before they announcing like there will be cops in the game, you probably guys seen a livery for a cop car in this Dodge Charger SRT8 back in the Crew 2. Alright, let me show you. I think if you go to the livery exclusive, oh yeah, there is the Interceptor. There you go. I don't know which state for this cop car is, but there you go. You have a police livery in the Dodge Charger SRT8. I can add my sirens right there, and I'm gonna add a horn. And then if you go to New York right here, and then go to the Harlem West event that usually you grind for money, you go to the starting line, or you can just like go it in free roam. Right, I'm gonna drive my Dodge Charger police car, or it's a Interceptor. This is probably like a cut content or something, but there's other like relating to cops is cut content as well in this game. Oh, I found it. Yes, yeah, there's like a cops park in like side of street, and you probably see a cops just like walking around the city. So basically, yeah, the cops is already in the game, but they just remove it because they really want to have an identity crisis for the franchise. So this is what we get. Yeah, the cops can spawn like as a parked car somewhere around the city or in the map. And then you can also, I think, yeah, there's no one spawned, but oh, there we go. I found a cop walking around. But yeah, there is cops in the game, but it's not really necessary to be added in the Crew 2 because they removed the cop chase features in the Crew 2. So it's basically just like leftover files. Yeah, that's pretty sad. This is probably one of my favorite features in the Crew franchise, which is the specs customization. So basically in the Crew 1, it allows the players to, build the cars they want. For example, if the car is available to be built as a monster trucks, you can build them as a monster trucks. Or maybe if the cars is available to be built as like a drag car or rally raid car, so you can basically build them. Well, maybe the exception is the hypercar, like the Koenigsegg or maybe LaFerrari, because yes, it's only compatible with one class, which is the performance. Or maybe it can be available as a drift car as well, for some of the hypercars available in the Crew 1. But yeah, it's a very unique customization features that it can let us build whatever we want with all the cars available in the Crew 1. So that's why in the Crew 2 or maybe the Crew Motorfest, you probably see like why there's a lot of Nissan Skyline and Ford Focus on different class. For example, like a Ford Focus Rally spec, a Ford Focus Rally Raid spec, Nissan Skyline Monster Trucks, and then there's a Nissan Skyline Rally Raid Edition. Yeah, it's thanks to this spec customization from the Crew 1, which basically they recycling the car model and how the car behaves for the later Crew games, all thanks to this one. So yeah, I just hope spec customization in future Crew games should return. Yeah, because there's a lot of like the standard cars that we have in the Crew Motorfest, for example like BMW M3 E30, it's only available for Street 1. However, in real life, it can become a rally cars, a drift cars, or maybe a circuit racing cars. So yeah, the possibility is still huge, but I guess the developers is trying to cut the corners as possible when developing Crew games. I know a lot of people is very skeptical about like off-road routes in Grand Race for Street 2. Yes, we had that in the Crew Motorfest Season 3. And I must say, I quite enjoying off-road routes for Street 2 because it creates a lot of chaos and goofiness in the Grand Race. Especially like in Street 2, you can try to find the meta for the off-road routes, and the meta for off-road routes in Street 2 Grand Race is very surprising. One of the most example one that the meta that we discovered with my friends is this one, the Chevy Big Block Hoonigan truck. This car is very good for off-road Street 2 routes and it's probably one of the meta. However, if this car is used for the sand or the beach route, well, you're donezo. And the only option for all-around off-road Street 2 cars is probably the Porsche Taycan, the Nissan Skyline Black Panther, or maybe the Lamborghini Huracan. I just hope the off-road Street 2 routes return in Grand Race at some point. Or maybe, developers, can you give us off-road Street 1 Grand Race routes, please? Because I know Street 1 has a lot of like off-road specific cars, because they have a lot of SUVs and trucks. So yeah, I'm just hoping the developers can troll us again with off-road routes for road cars. There's a lot of missing vehicles that we didn't have it in the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest. Like in the Crew 2, one of the example is the Subaru BRZ, the Dodge Ram SRT10, and then the roof street spec, like the roof CTR3 and the roof 300k street spec, and also the car that I forgot to mention is the Porsche 911 roof, the roof RT35. However, in the Crew Motorfest, there is a lot of missing vehicles that a lot of people forgot about. One of the most example is this boat, the Aeroboat SV12. So yeah, this boat is not transferable to the Crew Motorfest, and also the MV Augustus bike is not transferable to the Crew Motorfest. Yeah, I forgot about these bikes because it's one of my favorite bikes in the Crew 2. Like this one is my favorite bikes, the MV Agusta F4RR, which actually really cool that it has a quad exhaust. Just like the Pagani Zonda, but it's bikes. And then this plane, I think this plane is only available for a race class. So yeah, the Extreme Air XA42. This plane is so forgotten and it's also not transferable to the Crew Motorfest. Same also goes for the Hovercraft and the Jet Sprint. So yeah, the Jet Sprint and the Hovercraft is not transferable, except this Jet Sprint does appear in the Crew Motorfest. So it's leaked in the in-game files. However, if you try to get access to it, it will crash your game. So is there any missing vehicles that it didn't appear in the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest, other than the Subaru BRZ, and then the MV Augustus bikes, and the planes and the boats? Well, there is. If you look at the KTM, yeah, so there's like the KTM 1190 RC8R. This is the street version. And then there is the KTM Racing Edition for the 1190. Wait, why is it called the touring car? Oh, never mind. Because, yeah, back in the Crew 2 racing class, it's called touring car. And then there's the KTM 1290 Super Duke ABS, which only available for street racing class. However, in the Crew 1, there is a racing spec for this KTM Super Duke. And we still didn't have it in the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest. So this is the KTM Super Duke. And we're missing the racing version of this bike. Even though, yeah, there's a lot of like street version of the bike becomes a racing version in this game. So there's a lot. For example, like the BMW S1000RR, it has the racing version. Even like the Kawasaki Ninja from 1980s has a racing version, which I don't know why this bike is missing, but the AI using it for a couple of summit events. For example, you can see the AI driving the KTM Super Duke Racing Edition on the pole position summit event. Yes, that's basically the racing version of the KTM Super Duke. So yeah, the Super Duke Racing Edition, it's still missing till these days. You cannot buy them in the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest. Wow. There is a lot of like weird vanity glitch that you can find in the Crew Motorfest. One of the most example is this one, like the Sphinx vanity top on the Proto Flashback. Like the Sphinx top is much more larger than the car. Also, it applies with the Proto Lucky one as well, but sadly already got patched. So yeah, that's one of the most funniest vanity glitch we can find. However, there is another one. If you go to the Nitro's vanity, and if you already own the Matte Inferno Nitro from the Crew 2 by doing the Matte Skills hobbies, you probably unlock this vanity. So yeah, apply it to your car. And also if you own the Night Shift Smoke, you can try it on. Alright, here we go. Let's try it with the Nitros and the Night Shift Smoke. As you can see, the Night Shift Smoke just goes through your car for no reason. Yeah, this vanity is really glitchy for the smokes. Alright, let's test the Nitros for this vanity. So if you press the Nitros long enough, see? It has a visual glitch. So the Nitro stays on if you press the Nitros long enough. And it looks really cool though. I like this one. However, this glitch only applies to you, to the players. So the other players cannot see the weird visual vanity glitch on their screen. For example, like if you're trying to call your friends and, hey, see what happened to my car, they cannot see them. So it only applies to your car, only on your POV. Yeah, but I like this weird Nitro's vanity glitch. I think there's another one with this smoke and NOS vanity glitch. But yeah, Night Shift Smoke is so distracting because it just goes through your car. So for the smokes, I think the other one that is glitch and it's very weird, and it's probably talked about in the community, is the Snowman Smoke. I will demonstrate of what happened with the Snowman Smoke because it's terrible. And then for the Nitros, there's glitch as well, like the like the Matte Inferno Nitros. I think it's it's this one. If you have the Orange Reactor Nitro, use this one because it's glitching as well, just like the Matte Inferno Nitro. Right, let's test the Snowman Smoke and the Matte Inferno Nitro for this McLaren Senna. Okay, let's try the smoke first. So I'm gonna do the donut. Alright. What the hell? Okay. I don't know what's happening with the smoke, but they're just really low quality. It's just like a 2D effect. I thought it was like a 3D effect, just like the low poly smoke or something. But the Snowman Smoke is so terrible. I hate that. Alright. Let's try the Nitros. Okay, it has the same visual glitch effect, just like the Matte Inferno Nitros. But I guess the Matte Inferno Nitro is very obvious. But for the Orange Reactor, I think it still looks cool, but it's a bit small for the flames. And if you just like tap the NOS, it's just gone. So if you hold the Nitros for long enough, the visual glitch will appear like that. So I don't know why this happened, but I like it, except for the Snowman Smoke because it's a 2D effect. It's just like 144p. It's not even like 360p or 720p. Like, that's a really bad quality image. Wow. So if you guys didn't know about this Ford Shelby GT500 Road Force 1 back in the Crew 2, this car is supposed to be one of the most rarest car in the game. So I think because of Ivory Tower screwed up and they put the car on sale for I think like 5 to 6 hours. But sadly, this car is only buyable with crew credits. So you have to buy like a fantasy bundles including this car for like 98,000 crew credits, I think. And it's the same thing like the Mitsubishi Eclipse Star Edition. I think Jiron228 has already made the video about this, and he already said that this car is only available for 5 to 6 hours window to be buyable with crew credits. And eventually the developers acknowledged these issues and they announcing maintenance and trying to remove the car from the game entirely. So that was back in like 2020. And then the car appeared again 1 year later and it's now buyable with bucks. So yeah, like in previous year it's only buyable with crew credits and it costs you real life money because you only have to buy a crew credits. So this car right now, because you know the crew is just like celebrating 10 years anniversary of the franchise, they made this car free. I think it's also back when the Crew 2 cost you only like $1 and they give you like a free cars like the Porsche 959, and then this car is also included as well. So yeah, this car is now available for free, and I didn't even bought this car in my main account. I just forgot. It used to be one of the most expensive vehicle in the street racing category, but now it's one of the most cheapest one, or it's just obtainable for free. Let me scroll. Which one is the most expensive? I think it's still the Challenger SRT Demon Interception Unit thingy. But if you bought like the Gold Edition or the, you know, the most expensive one, I think you can get this car for free. And also this one, the Mitsubishi Eclipse Star Edition, used to be crew credits exclusive car. So you must buy like a vanity bundles, and it's including this Eclipse Star Edition. And if I remember, it costs you like $15 IRL money. So yeah, the problem is the car wasn't that good because it got nerfed. It used to be OP. Yeah, trust me, it used to be one of the meta in street racing category, but they patched it. But other than that, yeah, the Shelby GT500 Road Force 1 is now buyable by everyone. So I'm gonna buy it myself because this is a free car and I haven't got this car in my main account. And let's drive it. The car itself in the Crew 2, I think it's mid because, you know, muscle cars. Some of the muscle cars in the Crew 2 is just like not really good performance wise. But other than that, in the Crew Motorfest, I think because of Season 6 they buffing all the Mustangs and the Shelby. It's pretty good, it's pretty decent. But yeah, try it for yourself, or if you haven't bought this car in the Crew 2, get it now and get it transferred to the Crew Motorfest. So basically you save a lot of money because this car is free in the Crew 2 forever. If you guys didn't know, character customization is already a thing since the Crew 1. So back when we have the Wild Run update, they adding bikes into the game. And bikes in the Crew 1 is actually fully customizable, just like we had in the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest. However, in the Crew 1, there is like a special customization for these bikes, which is specific for the character customization. So basically you can change your helmet, you can change your jackets or the outfits, whatever you like. However, it costs you a lot of money. I still don't get it. How is this thing 90 bucks for only changing like a jacket and 50 bucks for changing a color of your helmet? How? However, in the Crew 2, they actually adding a proper character customization, which the player can, you know, choose the character at the start of the game and then change their outfits wherever you like. And one of the most dumb reason back in the Crew 2, after you select your character preset at the start of the game, you cannot change it anymore after you pick those one. Yes, you will stuck forever with this character model in the Crew 2. However, in the Crew Motorfest, the character customization, it's really much more advanced compared to like in the Crew 2. And yes, you can change your character models like the head models, the hairs, and everything. So, which means the Crew Motorfest character customization, it's much better than the previous Crew games. Some of you guys probably remember about this walking glitch from the Crew 2. So basically, you know, you only can walking around in your headquarters, right? Or maybe your houses. But with this glitch, you can basically roaming around the map by walking. Yes, I'm not even joking, but I still remember back in like maybe 2019 or maybe 2018, the street headquarters can make you really roaming around the map by walking. So basically you have to like go from the stairs and then jump to this ramp and then go to the, you know, the railings, go to the staircase, and then you drop down from the building or the parking lot. And now you're free and you can just walking around the map wherever you are, but there is a limit because sometimes the map cannot be rendered properly and then you can just fall off into the map. And also Pants was already made about this video a while ago, so you can just check that out. And then years later, a lot of people discovered a different method. One of the example is by glitching through the house interior, and you can freely roaming around the map by walking. And the other one is the off-road headquarters method. But sadly, this glitch got patched really quickly months later. Yeah, the developers didn't want us to have fun, sadly. UFO, aliens, Easter eggs, always a thing in the Crew franchise. One of the most notable one is this one. This is basically an Area 51 in the Crew universe, which is located in somewhere near Joshua Tree Land if you check it in the map, and also near a Grand Canyon. But yeah, this is basically the Area 51 and this is the UFO. And yeah, this is the same spot as well, same as in the Crew 1 for the UFO Easter eggs. And also there's like a special alien event in the Crew 2. Where's the event? This one, They Are Coming. And this is basically one of the alien reference in the Crew 2 as well. Or maybe referencing other movies as well. And I think there's also like a special dedicated, you know, towns with a lot of aliens reference, and it also exists in real life. Oh, this one, this town, Roswell. This is basically a town dedicated to the UFO, aliens, and everything. And this one we have an alien shop or alien ice cream. Nice. And then this is like a UFO shop. Oh yes, also like a alien stickers. Okay. But yeah, there you go. That's a dedicated aliens Easter egg in the Crew franchise. Escape glitch is always a thing in the Crew 2. One of the most notable one is this one where you have to work together with your friends. Your friends have to use a plane and you have to use a bikes. And then you have to get stuck in your friend's plane. And there you go, you're just like roaming around with your friends with using the planes. And yeah, the escape distance is still working. So basically the game thinks that you are still using a bikes or in the land. But eventually you are flying with your friends in the air. I don't think it's already fixed, but probably it was. I know the second escape glitch is a bit complicated, but it's basically you changing the final summit score for the escape. And I will show you the video right here, thanks to Marquinho24 for providing the video about this glitch. That's how dumb the escape glitch back in the Crew 2. But yeah, there's a lot of different methods about this escape glitch, and I think A-Course has a lot of them. So yeah, go check them out. There's a lot of Fast and Furious reference in the Crew franchise. Basically, the storyline in the Crew 1, it's leaning towards like Fast and Furious movie. Like it's all about revenge, and we have to do some weird bullshit things related to the street racing scene, or maybe relating to the government or the cops. And then in the Crew 2, I think there's like a special Summit Team event relating to the Fast and Furious movie, which is called the Night Shift Summit. When the first time we got this Night Shift Summit, IVT drops a brand new vehicle, which is the Nissan Skyline High Octane Edition, which is resembling the Nissan Skyline R34 GTR from Too Fast and Too Furious, driven by Brian O'Connor. And then in the Night Shift Summit event, there's a lot of reference to the Fast and Furious movie as well. Like the opening race with the bridge jump from Too Fast and Too Furious, like the AI using the Honda S2000, RX-7, and I forgot the other one is because there's no Toyota Supra in the game. But however, in the rerun version, yeah, they ruined the Fast and Furious reference for this Night Shift event. And then also the vehicle requirements that we have to use a Dodge Charger is referencing or Dominic Toretto with his Dodge Charger in Fast and Furious. But yeah, there's a lot of like Fast and Furious reference in the Crew 2 that probably I miss, but the most obvious one is probably from the Summit and also the Crew 1 storyline. And also you have to use the Mitsubishi Evo 10 in a Miami Harbor is referencing to the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift when Sean did a drift practice with the Evo 8. Yeah, because we didn't have any Evo 8 or Evo 9 back in the Crew 2. There is some interesting fact about this Proto Alpha Mark II. It's basically based on a concept rendered by Sean Bull Design for a Bugatti 101P, or should I say the Bugatti F1 concept cars. But it never exists in real life and it's only for rendering or, graphic design stuff. So it's very unique that Ivory Tower trying to make this like a proper Bugatti cars, but maybe because it didn't have any license with it before, so it's not possible, and they put it in as a proto brand and call it the Alpha Mark II. Another fun fact, this Proto Alpha Mark II is the first Alpha GP car that we've seen in the announcement trailer for the Crew 2. Some of you probably already own the F4U Corsair and the Proto WR1 both from the Crew 2. So if you guys didn't know, both of these vehicles was already in the Crew 2, but it's not obtainable by everyone. And this is one of the proof that the Corsair planes and the WR1 boats exist in the Crew 2 and it's fully usable, but it's basically just like a cut content that should be in the Crew 2, but developers changed their plans to be added in the Crew Motorfest. I guess this might be related that the Motorfest should be the Crew 2 DLC, and they scrapped both of these vehicles and they added later on different games, which is the Crew Motorfest. The glitch on how to obtain the Proto WR1 and F4U Corsair in the Crew 2 is only for PlayStation players. So basically you have to play the Crew 2, then you have to open Spotify app in PlayStation for a couple of seconds, and then you return to the Crew 2, and both of these vehicles will appear in vehicle category. Yeah, the glitch is very simple. I think that's from what I know for all the PlayStation players who own these two vehicles from the Crew 2. So I didn't know that this glitch is only for PlayStation players. So yeah, that's that. That's how you obtain Corsair plane and WR1 in the Crew 2. What the hell? Why you just spawn me in the roads? Okay, game. Some of you probably already own all the vehicles in the Crew Motorfest because you're already playing since the Crew 2 and always grinding for the exclusive vehicles that you can obtain from the Crew 2. And I think I only miss a couple of cars. Okay, let me sort it out. Not own. Yeah, I'm missing a couple of them. And the most obvious one that you probably all of you missed is this one. The Proto Alpha Mark X GP Explorer Edition. And it says it's exclusive vehicle from Twitch. And fun fact about this car, this Alpha GP only exists for a couple of thousands people who can own this. And it's only for the people who lives in France. Yes. So if you are French, you probably own this car. I think it's a huge flex if you see one of these in Gran race and you cannot test driving these cars. But if I remember correctly, this particular car is only obtainable from like, I guess, a special events that is only available if you live in France. I think you have to like register a form or something. So 1,000 people who registered that form, like, you have to like inputting your infos, personal infos and other stuff. So after they registered the forms for the event that is only available in France, you will gifted the Proto Mark 10 Alpha GP Explorer Edition. It still a bit contradicts because it says from a Twitch drops. But I don't know if it's going to be a, buyable cars or maybe make it as a Twitch drop somewhere in the future. We don't know. You probably guys remember before we have like the map expansion in the Crew Motorfest, there is like a glitch that if you go somewhere on the edge of the map, this thing will appear. Yeah, it's called the default work in progress island, they said. So maybe if you go like right here, like yeah, it's right beside Maui, before Maui exists, the default work in progress in the map, it will appear. I think same also goes to the Hoonigan, you know, the Hoonigan playgrounds. If you go right to this location in season 1, the default work in progress island will appear as well. And the unfinished map expansion for later seasons, also if you go right here, yeah, it will pop up the default work in progress island. Wait, let me demonstrate it to you. And it's still possible to do that. I have to use a plane or a boat. But I remember this one from my buddy Splash, who discovered this one back in season 1. But let me use the planes.
Moments later.
Oh, okay. It returns back to the game area, but yeah, it doesn't pop up anymore, sadly. But it used to be pop up like, if you go to the edge of the map, between the, you know, the other island from the Oahu, the default work in progress island will appear. If you guys notice, the Crew 2 actually have a real life sponsors or license brand. For example, like this Ford, because maybe it's related to, you know, a real life race car, it has a casual sponsor to it, Brembo sponsor and a Sparco sponsor. And if you go to Laguna Seca, you will see a Michelin banner and a Rolex banner. Yeah, so basically the Crew Games has a licensed sponsor, even WeatherTech. Even WeatherTech exists in this game. So even though in Livery Editor you didn't have any, you know, licensed brand or licensed sponsors, but basically it's built into the game. And you have Pepsi, yes, you have Pepsi sponsors in the Crew 2. Same also for the real life sponsor for the GT3 cars, like this one, the Huracan has the Pertamina sponsors. And then this DTM BMW M4 has a lot of sponsor to it. HNR, Puma, yeah, there's a lot of, you know, in real life brands in the Crew franchise. So I don't know how the licensing works to get these brands to be put on the cars. Or maybe to put it on the racetrack banners. Like, how is this even possible? It's in the game, but if you're trying to, you know, use the IRL brand from a livery editor, it doesn't exist. There's no option that you can use those IRL brand and to put it in the car. And you have to make it by yourself. Yeah, I still don't know how it's possible. I think I already told you about this features is missing in the Crew Motorfest, that you cannot make a special iridescent colors in the Crew Motorfest. So if you go to the iridescent paint option, there is no option that you can fine-tune or make your own custom colors. But in the Crew 2, you can actually make your own custom iridescent color with the fine-tune options. So if you want to have a custom color for your car in the Crew Motorfest, you must import them from the Crew 2. And also my beautiful looking color Lancia Shadows right here. Yeah, this is using the special color option from the Crew 2. Same also for my Jaguar XJ220 right here. Look at that color, yeah. However, there is a problem with this. So yeah, take a look at this Zonda F. I put a special iridescent paint that I made from the Crew 2, and it looks really beautiful in the Crew Motorfest, and it perfects with the lighting as well. But if you go to the color customization option and decided to change, you know, try to change the color for the car, and yeah, it will broke the shininess of your special paint. And it looks really weird and it's disgusting. So I'm gonna tell you again, if you have a car with a special paint that's got transferred from the Crew 2 to the Crew Motorfest, don't ever go to the paint option. You should never touch the color customization option, or your special paint will be gone, and in the normal gameplay it looks really ass. if the shininess is gone. If you guys didn't know that this DeLorean is actually exists in real life. So yeah, this car is built by Alexandre Claudin. It's one of the French racing driver or drift racer. And in fact, this car appeared in the Dominion update. I think it was back in like 2022, season 6 of Motorflix update. And one of the cars that is obtainable for free from the Motor Pass. I mean, it's kind of crazy that someone just built a DeLorean drift car and no one ever like asking for it. It's actually quite crazy. So this DeLorean drift car counted as a creator's brand. Even though there's a DeLorean brands exist in the game, I still don't know why they didn't put it here. I think it's because, you know, they have the license with the drifters that built this DeLorean drift cars, not with DeLorean. I guess that's why. But this is probably the only licensed car for the creator's brand. And the only car that exists IRL for the creator's brand. Yeah, it's actually crazy. Another fun fact for you all, this Honda S2000 Kamehameha Edition used to be one of the Summit exclusive cars from the Crew 2. But because things are happening and things got changed, it becomes the Crew Motorfest Summit cars. And I think it explains why. So because maybe this car is perfect for, you know, the Crew 2 DLC related content. And we already explained that Motorfest should be the Crew 2 DLC because the Crew 2 DLC for Hawaiian expansion map is already planned, but sadly it cancelled and it becomes a brand new game called the Crew Motorfest. So back in the Crew 2, yes, this car should be an exclusive Summit cars. And the name for the car is very different. It's called the Honda S2000 Tropical Madness Edition. And in the Crew Motorfest, this car got renamed to become the Kamehameha Edition that we now know. But basically, yeah, this Kamehameha Edition or maybe Tropical Madness Edition is a copy-paste version of the Red Panther Edition. Yeah, like same body kits, maybe except the hoods. But yeah, like the splitter, side skirts, spoilers, everything is the same. But only the Kamehameha Edition has the green accent, the Red Panther has a red accent. It's basically the same car with a little bit of appearance difference. If you probably saw the E3 build or the Gamescom build for the Crew 2, there's a lot of difference compared to like the full release of the Crew 2. One of the most example is the Nitros is very different color. And then the first ever introduction event, it sets on the night time. And you're using a silver Porsche 911 GT3 RS. And the other most notable things that is very different in the Gamescom build and the final builds of the game was the far chase cam from the Crew 1 is available in the E3 or the Gamescom build. Same also for the crash impact cutscenes. If you hit something very hard, it will trigger like a crash cutscenes, just like in the Crew 1. And lastly, the vehicle preview in the menu is very different compared to the full release. You guys probably can compare it and probably notice a lot of difference between the E3 build and the full release build of the Crew 2. So go check them out for the full information and the full comparison. Back in like season 1 or maybe season 2, if you own all the vehicles in the Crew Motorfest, the game will recommend you to buy a jet sprint. Yes, so basically jet sprint is in the in-game files for the Crew Motorfest. It already exists. And I think it's already exists in the concept art as well, like I show you right here. Yes, that's a jet sprint. However, the developers decided to remove the jet sprints both in the Crew Motorfest. Yeah, because we like the jet sprints from the Crew 2, even though it's a bit irritating sometimes. But hey, it will be really fun though to have a jet sprints in Hawaiian map of the Crew Motorfest. So if you're trying to buy the jet sprints, it says it's free, right? But if you're trying to buy it, the game will crash and it will return you to the main menu, or maybe you can get kicked out of the game. Unicorn is probably one of the most underrated Easter eggs in the Crew 1. Finding a unicorn in the Crew 1 is actually counts as a collectibles, but it's very rare to spawn in the Crew 1. But if I remember correctly, the spawn location for the unicorn is somewhere in the East Coast forest area. And there's like a huge land near like the quarry, somewhere in the East Coast. And if you fast travel there, you'll find a unicorn. but it's a very rare sightings Easter eggs in the Crew 1. However, in the Crew 2, they removed these unicorn Easter eggs. The reason why? I don't know. When it comes to vanity licensing issues, it always comes to the Ferrari cars in the Crew franchise. For example, I will show you that the Ferrari vanity option is not really that much. You have all the tires, well, nearly, but there's no window tint except the black window tint and the silver coated window tint. So yeah, and also there's no rooftop customization for the vanities for the Ferrari cars. Yeah. However, other than the Ferrari, there is also another car brands that has the same issues as well, but it's so much worse than the Ferraris. Yep, it's the Toyota. Look at the customization for the vanity options. You can only change the horn and audio signature. You cannot change the tires, you cannot add the underglow, you cannot put the rooftops on it, you cannot change your nitrous colors as well for the Toyota cars. Yeah, it's on every Toyota cars. The Supra, yes, you cannot change anything except the horn and the audio. The Toyota Tacoma, yes, you can only change the horn and the audio signature or the engine sound. Wow. That's very limited compared to the Ferrari vanities. I think Gordon Murray has the same issues as well. Okay, let me check. Okay, the T50, the normal one. Yep, you cannot change the tires. Yep, you cannot change the smokes. Oh, now you can change the nitros. Okay, you cannot change the underglows. Finally, you can change the window tint, horn, and audio signature, and a couple of rooftop options and couple of dashboard vanity options. Yeah. Well, I guess it's still much better than the Toyota. You probably all remember that in the Crew 2, a lot of people is already reaching like level 999,000. Yes, it's thanks to the icon points glitch that happens back in 2023, I think. So when they first introduced a race creator, there is a huge glitch that can make you have an infinite icon points in the Crew 2. So you have to find a custom race made by people that can only took you less than seconds to finish the race. And the game will think that, oh sorry, you didn't have any bucks or XP from this event. However, if you go to the icon points menu, you will have an infinite amount of icon points. And a lot of people just trying to, exploit this glitch to level up faster. So you have to put all of your icon points to, to the followers' perks. I don't think the bugs is really affecting by this, but if you put all the icon points on fame, you can level up much more faster. And if I remember correctly, if you already put all the points on the fame to level up faster, you have to go on some certain spot to do some, some skills. For example, like this glass tube. You're basically just like rolling around and you can just sit there and doing nothing. So basically you can just AFK while grinding levels in the Crew 2. Thanks to this icon points glitch. In the next seasons, this glitch is already got patched, so people cannot exploit it anymore. But it's too late because there's a lot of players already reaching level 999,000 thanks to this icons points glitch. This is probably one of the most forgotten DLC in the Crew franchise, which is the Crew 1 Calling All Units DLC. So in this DLC, it makes you become a cop. Yes, you become a police in this DLC. And you have a different characters. You're not using Alex Taylor that we know in the Crew 1 as the main protagonist. But for this Calling All Units DLC, you become a different protagonist, which is a woman protagonist. And the Calling All Units story has a different storyline from the story campaign from the base game. So that's why they need a separate protagonist. The story mode of this DLC is very forgotten, but I guess the features for this DLC still carries over till these days. Well, until the game got shut down. There is a lot of Back to the Future reference in the Crew franchise. One of the example is like the special event or the special summit that can get you the DeLorean monster trucks in the Crew 2. There's also an achievement kind of relating to the Back to the Future as well in the Crew Motorfest, which is this one. So you have to go 88 miles per hour in the DeLorean, and then after you reach 88 miles per hour with the DeLorean, you have to use a flashback button. Yeah, it's a very unique achievement, and I know not a lot of people know about this. There's also an Easter egg in the Crew 2 that kind of relates of the Back to the Future movie. Like these stone graves, it says Emmett Brown. And if you guys didn't know, Emmett Brown is Doc Brown from Back to the Future movies. So the developers understand pop culture. In the Crew 2, there is an update which can be considered as a weird update. One of the most example is probably the hovercraft update, or which is called the Gator Rush update, which they only adding the hovercraft vehicles, a brand new events, and a new difficulty options. And then we fast forward to 2020, we have an update called the Inner Drive update for the Crew 2, which basically it added a brand new features called Hobbies, which a lot of people hate it because it resets your progression. Yes, so the in-game stats for the progression didn't count in the Hobbies tabs. So you have to do everything all over again, and you must lose to progress. Like, why? This one, yes, you have to lose a race to progress the Hobbies and get the stars, and to progress to get the Mazda RX-7. Yeah, a lot of people really want to get this RX-7 FC. I still remember that. Like this, you have to finish 4th in the PvP events. So which means we have to, down rank every time to progress and get this Mazda RX-7 FC. This is very weird. So it's basically reset your progression, you must lose to progress, and everything. So that's why a lot of people hate this Hobbies update, or the Inner Drive update. And also, one of the major updates they did in the Inner Drive update for the Crew 2, they updating the character models. So it's basically the character models is much better compared to before. So that's the only major things they added in the Inner Drive update. They adding the Hobbies, which you have to lose to progress, and updating the character models, and they removing the first person cam when you try to explore the HQ and houses. Not also the weirdness of they trying to adding some features into the game, but the trailer itself is very misleading because a lot of people said like Hobbies is probably car meets, because you probably seen in the trailer that our character can just like walking around freely outside of the cars or the vehicles. So yeah, the weirdest update and the most misleading update in the Crew franchise history. So back in the Crew 2, before they introducing about the Motor Pass and the Motorflix update, we have the coolest features that everyone loves, because these features can get us a free Crew credits. But after the Motorflix update and they introducing the Motor Pass system, well, you can still get a free Crew credits, but it's a small amount of Crew credits, and even you trying to save a lot of Crew credits to buy a Motor Pass, it's not enough. And still, because it's not enough, you have to spend real life money to buy the Motor Pass. But OG players will know that the Crew 2 contracts features actually very helpful. It's just basically daily challenge. You have to do something like, flying under the bridge, doing 3 speed traps, and then doing some race with some certain cars. You can get a free Crew credits by doing that. So you can get from 1,000 to 5,000 Crew credits every day or every week. So that's really pretty nice, right? However, after updates and they removing the Motor Pass system at the end of a life cycle for the Crew 2, you cannot get a free Crew credits anymore. And also they're removing the contracts and it never returns. And the only options to get the free Crew credits is by progressing at the beginning of the game. So basically when you're leveling up from rookie to famous, and then famous to star, and then to popular or something, you will always get a free Crew credits, right? Yeah, that's the only possible way to get Crew credits. And now, because they already in end of life cycle for the Crew 2, well, you can only get Crew credits by buying them with real life money. Yeah, that's a terrible decision and very, very sad. If you guys didn't know, the Crew always has an original soundtrack since the Crew 1. The dedicated original soundtrack for the game itself only played during the cutscenes or maybe the story mission. but it also has a special dedicated radio stations with bunch of original soundtrack or original score for the Crew 1 soundtrack, which it can be played during the free roam or maybe while you're doing faction race mission. However, in the Crew 2, the original soundtrack is a mess. So it's spread it into a different radio station. For example, like this one, it's in the, I think BPM is like electronic dance music radio station. And yeah, some of them has like licensed soundtrack and original soundtrack dedicated for the Crew 2. And you can see a Dylan Francis. Dylan Francis is a licensed song. And then what else? I think the one with the long name is probably like original soundtrack. And then you probably can see it again in the other radio station, like the rock radio station. I think this one is a licensed soundtrack. You probably also see like a licensed soundtrack that is very catchy, like this one, the Calio No Good. It's actually a licensed soundtrack. So it's very confusing, like which one of these is a licensed soundtrack and which one of these is original soundtrack. But you probably can see that if the artist has a long name to it, or just like, you know, a different people make those soundtrack like this one, this is definitely an original soundtrack. Oh, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, this song is from Need for Speed Run. Nah, yeah, this is a licensed soundtrack. And also Tame Impala is a licensed soundtrack. Yeah, it's very weird in Crew 2. But how about in the Crew Motorfest? Well, it's not really that a mess compared to in the Crew 2 because of the streamer mode features. So, in the Crew Motorfest, you will have like a different radio station. Like Motorfest music is basically a shuffle playlist from every other radio station. And then this one, you can see like, yeah, this Emil and the Sniffers is a licensed soundtrack. Airborne is also a licensed soundtrack. However, if you're using the streamer mode, there you go. If you enable the streamer mode from the audio settings, and then after you enable streamer mode, you'll probably see there is a lot of artists that's missing from this radio station. But you probably see like Tiger Blood Jewel every time. So basically that's one of the artists who made the original soundtrack for the Crew Motorfest. I think that's also like 32 Club is also original soundtrack for the Crew Motorfest. And Vibing, we'll probably see some of the original artists. Yeah, 32 Club is also in this radio station. Yeah, so if you're using the streamer mode in the Crew Motorfest, you're probably gonna filter some of the, you know, original soundtrack available in the Crew Motorfest compared to like in the Crew 2, which the game didn't have streamer mode, so you cannot filter which one of these artists is a licensed song or original soundtrack. Yeah, because the original soundtrack in the Crew 2 is such a mess compared to like in the Crew 1 and the Crew Motorfest. If you guys notice, in the Crew franchise, like in the Crew 1, the Crew 2 or the Crew Motorfest, there's a lot of cars that is basically a reused models from Driver San Francisco. One of the example is the starter cars from the Crew 1, which is the Nissan 370Z, the Chevy Camaro SS, and the Dodge Challenger SRT8. Is basically the car that's already appeared in Driver San Francisco. So basically they're reusing the Driver San Francisco assets, but with a little bit of remodeled and adding a little bit of customization to the cars. But there's also other vehicles that probably can count as a reused assets from Driver San Francisco. Maybe like this Lamborghini Murcielago, which is the same Lamborghini Murcielago LP640 from Driver San Francisco. And also maybe the Lamborghini Miura SV, which appears in Driver San Francisco as well. And then the most iconic Dodge Challenger RT, which probably is a reused asset from Driver San Francisco. I know some of these traffic cars also a reused asset from Driver San Francisco, like this van right here, the yellow van. It's basically the car from Driver San Francisco. Oh, there's a lot of fans right here. I think the bus is also from the Driver San Francisco, which you probably seen the bus somewhere spawn in the map if you go to some certain locations. So they sort of kinda, you know, cutting corners by reusing assets or car models from Driver San Francisco, which basically they did a Forza and still using an Xbox 360 car model. The last time they reusing Driver San Francisco car models is probably the Lancia Stratos Group 4 rally car, and a fresh new looking model for the Lancia Stratos. But yeah, we already seen like the Miura, and then the Murcielago LP640 is a huge possibility that this car is a reused asset from Driver San Francisco. But there's a huge possibility that they can reuse the same asset from Driver San Francisco for like a car model reference. For example, they can remodel this Nissan Skyline R33 in the Crew Motorfest. Trust me. Also maybe the old Abarth, the Fiat 695 SS Assetto Corsa, and yes, my beloved Gran Torino, and also for RS200. And yes, this car should return in the Crew franchise. You can just like reusing the same car model from Driver San Francisco with a bit of remodeled, and then it looks good as new. You guys probably still remember about the double affixes glitch from back in season 3 of the Crew Motorfest. So basically you have to go to the parts that you really want to recalibrate your affixes. And for example, if you guys really want to have your cars has a double skilled affix, you can do that back then. So there's like an exploit. Also credits to Ozve for the video right here. So you can have a double affix for every cars in the game back in season 3 with using some exploits. And also Kingdom 12 demonstrate us on how this double affix works for each of the affixes or perks that is available in the Crew Motorfest. And I'm gonna tell you, it's very broken. Especially for like the double skill affixes. And the leaderboard is so scuffed, not only for the summit but also for the free roam feats. Because a lot of people is abusing the double affixes glitch and put double skill affixes on their parts. Yeah, it's so crazy and so bizarre. There's only one character that is returning from the Crew 1 in the Crew 2, which is this woman called Alita. Alita is one of the storyline characters back in the Crew 1 when she tried to assist you in Miami or the southern area or the southern part area of the map. So basically, our main character is trying to gather intels from this woman. And then Alita returns in the Crew 2, but it's just like a small cameo appearance, and it's not really relating to the street racing story. And she was the Crew 1 characters that appears in the Crew 2 ever since. So technically, if you think about it, the Crew 1 and the Crew 2 and also the Crew Motorfest is in fact in the same universe. In the Crew 2, there's like a hidden Easter egg somewhere in the game. So if you guys try to complete this Scary Salim event, after you go to the finish line, you will see a weird figures, which is a man with a Halloween pumpkin head. But if you try to approach it, he will run away. So basically this is one of the hidden Easter eggs in the Crew 2, and it only appears if you try to complete the Scary Salim event. Well, actually it can be appeared in free roam after you complete the Scary Salim event. If you guys remember, the Crew 1 and the Crew 2 has a collection import, and it's called the TC2 reward programs. So it's basically we have to do some certain challenges to unlock some vehicles that we can obtain from the start in the Crew 2. So we have to do like some challenges in the Crew 1, for example, complete a cop chase, doing the longest event in the game, or just buying vehicles, and also upgrade our cars. And after you complete all the different challenges in the reward programs, you will get a free vehicles to be obtainable when you have the Crew 2. So it's one of the best way to get everything while you starting the Crew 2. However, these TC2 reward programs is expired when they release the Gator Rush updates. So if you play the game after the Gator Rush update, or maybe like playing the game in 2019, even though you're already completing all the reward programs, no, you cannot get those vehicles from the reward programs because the challenges or the events is already expired 3 months after the game got released. It's so sad, but hey, at least we have the first ever collection import from the Crew 1 and the Crew 2. In the Crew 2, you probably know that you can get outfits from the Motor Pass. For example, like this. Some of these outfits only obtainable from the Motor Pass, like this helmet, this mask, then this police jacket, and then this jacket and everything. Yeah, it's only said Motor Pass exclusive. So, when the Motor Pass system got removed back in Season 10, you will never get this outfit anymore. And the only Motor Pass items that can be available to buy is the vehicles and the vanities. Yeah, probably some of the vanities, because some of them can be, you know, a summit rewards in the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest. But for the outfits, you will never get this again, and it's not even buyable. This is actually very weird, that because maybe the developers thinks that, yeah, outfit is not really worth it to be buyable. And maybe the developers thinking that this Motor Pass outfit is not really worth it for all the player base, so I guess that's why. So it's still a mystery that if this Motor Pass exclusive outfits will be buyable in the future, or when the Crew 2 has an offline mode treatment. We don't know about that. So in the Crew 2, you can actually own a house, and the only house that is given for the players for a standard edition of the game is this one. I think it's located somewhere in Miami. Yeah, it's somewhere in Miami, in a, you know, a small island right here. And then the other one, if you own like the deluxe edition of the game or the gold edition, you will own the house right here. So yeah, if you own like the expensive version of the Crew 2, you will maybe sometimes spawn in this house in LA. And basically, the model of the house that you own in the Crew 2 is the same model. Yep, look, it's a same model, just like the LA house. So in your house, you can basically just like walking around and show off your vehicle collection to your friends or audience. I still didn't put my cars right here. Alright, I'm gonna put my maybe Chevrolet Corvette right here. And there you go, you can just like customize it, or just like open the doors, you know, and then turning on the lights or something. So yeah, basically you can just like showcase or preview your cars or vehicles in your garage. So this house features kind of reminds me of like the TDU1 or TDU2, right? Because basically, yeah, the Crew should be the TDU successor. So there's other houses scattering all around the map that maybe it's a cut content when the developers is trying to add a buyable house features in the Crew 2. One of the most example is in this one, the small island in New York, which has the same house model that we seen in Miami and Los Angeles. Look, like the same hangar, and then the same, you know, like airstrip or something, and the same garage, and you can see it right in the map. Yeah, basically that's your garage. And then there's also in, I think it's Detroit. Yeah, there's also the same house model in Detroit. Oh, this one. Yeah, right here. It's the north side of Detroit, and you will see this house. The same model as we already see before. And this model of a house also exists near Dallas, right here, which is the same house model with airstrip and hangar. And the last one is in Las Vegas. I think it's down near the water right here. Oh, there you have it. I can see it. Yeah, it's right here in Las Vegas. So I guess this is one of the cut content from the Crew 2. And I think the developer is trying to adding like buyable house features in the Crew 2. There's some of the assets that we can see in the game. The same house model that we seen, and you know, maybe same functionality. It's basically just like, you know, a different spawn point. That's probably what I'm trying to say, because all the houses is basically recycled. The Crew games always has a special edition, which is the most expensive version of the game. I think one of the most edition for the Crew one, or like a game bundle, is the complete edition, which includes the 2 DLC, the Calling All Units, Wild Run, and also the Car Pass or the Season Pass. I think that's one of the expensive bundle that we can have in the Crew 1. Then in the Crew 2, we actually have like a special edition bundle for the game, which is called the Motor Edition. And it contains the Gold Edition for the Crew 2 for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And also some merchandise like stickers and then license plates, which is pretty ironic. And then a steelbook and a roadmap. And also a Season Pass DLC, so you can play the game early on any consoles you play. So that's the Crew 2 most expensive edition. How about the Crew Motorfest? Sadly, in the Crew Motorfest, we didn't have like, the super expensive edition of the game, just like in the Crew 2. But the most expensive edition of the game is the Ultimate Edition for the Crew Motorfest, which includes like the year-round pass back then, and then the fitted pack edition. And also, if you pre-order the game, you will have the Liberty Walk pack, which contains the Toyota Supra, the Liberty Walk outfit, vanities, and other stuff. Yeah, it's a bit of a downgrade because they didn't have like the super expensive edition, just like the Crew 2 Motor Edition, which includes like, the merchandise for the game. Yeah, it's, a bit downgrade in my opinion. You guys probably still remember about the Google console called Google Stadia back in like 2019. However, the consoles flopped so hard and flopped terribly on sales. So Stadia got shut down back in like 2023. So all the live services, the servers, and also the video games is no longer supported on January 2023, prior to the shutdown. One of the racing games that featured in Google Stadia is the Crew 2. And I still don't know how many players playing the Crew 2 on Google Stadia. And this is still a mystery. What happened about the Crew 2 on Google Stadia? Does everyone who plays on Stadia lost their save files? Or maybe it can still be recovered because it saves into your Ubisoft account. So basically, if you try to play the Crew 2 on other platforms other than Stadia, you can continue your save files or progression from the Google Stadia prior to the shutdown. This is still a mystery, and I don't know. Probably some of you know or probably play the Crew 2 on Google Stadia. So let me know about this shutdown situation relating to the Crew 2. Probably this is just an assumption, but there's a lot of evidence that kind of backups this statement that quad bike should have its own category on the Crew Motorfest. Because if you guys see like the KTM quad bike in Rally Raid, it says race spec, not a normal like KTM 525, but it says a race spec on it. So basically this is the racing version of the KTM quad bike. But maybe in the in-game files somewhere it has the normal KTM quad bike that should be appeared in the Crew Motorfest, especially for a separate quad bike class. And the other evidence that backing this statement that quad bike should have its own category is in Season 6, they patched the handling for the quad bike. Compared to like in previous updates before it got patched, quad bike is just basically bikes with 4 wheels. Because yeah, it handles so weird and it's very grippy or sometimes can be oversteer. I already made about this video like a couple of weeks ago, so go check them out, like the handling comparison, and we're talking about the physics changes about this quad bike. So yeah, check them out. But my theory is quad bike should have its own category in the Crew Motorfest, because now it has its own different vehicle handling compared to any other vehicles. If you guys didn't know, this Forsberg Nissan 350Z drift car is not obtainable in the Crew 2 anymore. So if you guys missing out on the motor pass for the Forsberg update, well, you cannot get this car anymore. But thankfully, yeah, this car is returned in the Crew Motorfest as a main stage rewards. I mean, to be fair, this car wasn't that special. I mean, to be fair, if you try to collect all the cars from the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest, yeah, that's fair. However, in the Crew 2, if you're missing out on the motor pass for the Forsberg update, well, you cannot get this car anymore. So in the Crew Motorfest, I think the only possible way to obtain the Forsberg 350Z drift car is from the main stage legacy. I think it's on the Forsberg month. There you go. This one. So you have to complete all the 10 events and then you can get the Forsberg Racing Nissan 350Z Roadster, which this car is only exclusive to the Crew franchise. So okay, I'm gonna log on to my alt account for the Crew 2 and prove. Oh, it is alright. The Forsberg 350Z Roadster drift car is not obtainable for everyone. So if you guys just playing the Crew 2 recently or just buy the game recently, you cannot get this car ever again. It's gone. And it says Motorpass exclusive. It's not buyable unlike any other Motorpass car like this Nissan Safari Z and the Turismo GT3, or maybe just like the expensive Bugatti. Yeah, this one, because the Divine Edition is used to be one of the cars that is available for the last ever Motorpass. So yeah, it's only the Forsberg Racing 350Z Roadster that is not buyable till these days. Wow. There is 2 hidden specs of Chevy Impalas. Yes, this 1967 Chevy Impala, which is only available for street racing and racing class. However, back in like the Crew 1, they already teased a dragster spec for the Chevy Impala in the Wild Run DLC trailer for the Crew 1. And yes, that's the appearance of the Chevy Impala in dragster spec. However, in the game, you can probably see it in the summit menu for the Chevy Impala dragster spec, and which actually really looking cool in my opinion. So I still don't know why the developers didn't add this car in full release of the game or the DLC. Other than the dragster spec of the Chevy Impala, there is also a demolition derby specs of the Chevy Impala. So back in like the last ever update for the Crew 2, which is the Madfall 2 update, you probably see it in the preview of the update right here. So it's basically, this is the, the skills for the demolition derby specs. And it's basically inspired by a total wipeout, but you have to use a demolition derby car. But on this part of the preview, that's right, this is the demolition derby spec Chevy Impala. So yeah, again, I don't know why the developers decided to not put it in the full release of the game, but just let it rot in the in-game files. Or probably it will get added somewhere in the future, or maybe in the Crew Motorfest, or probably save it for future Crew games. We don't know. So back in like the Crew 1, there's like a special dedicated event for the Crew 3rd year anniversary, and the prizes is you will get a Mazda MX-5 circuit spec. So back then, the Mazda MX-5 circuit spec is not buyable, and it's only obtainable if you complete the Crew 3-year anniversary challenge. And the challenge is you have to complete the initiation story mission between Friday 1st until Thursday 7 December 2017. So if you guys complete the story mission on those certain dates, you will receive the free Mazda MX-5 circuit spec. However, if you didn't complete this 3rd year anniversary challenge, you probably won't have this Mazda MX-5, and it's not even viable to be built as a circuit spec. And then later in the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest, we already have the Mazda MX-5 racing spec, which a lot of people didn't know that this Mazda MX-5 is very special back in the Crew 1. In the Crew franchise, you probably noticed like there's only one licensed racetrack in the game. Like back in the Crew 1 and the Crew 2, we have a Mazda Laguna Seca Raceway. So that's the only licensed racetrack we had in the franchise, right? No, this racetrack is very popular in the motorsport history, especially for endurance racing, which is the Sebring International Raceway. So yeah, the only appearance is back in like the Crew 1, and I think it's only for like a PvP event or maybe like a faction event. However, in the Crew 2, Sebring International Raceway got replaced by a generic Miami racetrack. Yes, I still don't know what happened with Sebring in the Crew 2, or maybe licensing contract is expiring and IVT decided to not renewing the contract because it's a bit complicated that they will have to, negotiating with IMSA, the American motorsport organization, especially for endurance racing. So yeah, I guess that's why we haven't got Sebring International Raceway in the Crew 2 anymore. Probably this glitch is very forgotten because developers immediately patched this like weeks later or months later. It's relating to the summit car restriction. So basically, there's like a summit that forces you to use some certain cars or vehicles. And in this video, you can actually bypass those summit events that force you to drive some certain cars. And you have to use the swap vehicle parts method to do this glitch back then. And you have to use the filter for the vehicles first. For example, like this one, you have to filter with countries and then brands. And then after you doing all the filtering and stuff, you just switch the parts to the cars that you really want to use. In this video, he used the Lamborghini Huracan, even though the events force you to use the Mercedes SLR McLaren. And then when you proceed to the event, well, he's using the Lamborghini Huracan. And after everyone finds out about this glitch, everyone just like exploiting this glitch to do that specific summit events that force you to use some certain cars. I mean, it's quite funny though, because I just discovered it like, you know, back in like season 3, because someone said you can actually bypassing the force vehicle in the summit thanks to the swap part glitch, but it's already got patched. This is kind of a bit forgotten by everyone, but the Crew 1 should have like a companion app. So basically you can just like customize your car in your mobile app, and then you can just like put any parts you want. But sadly, the Crew 1 companion app got cancelled because maybe the developers think that the companion app is useless by everyone. However, they decided to make a mobile game called the Crew Road Empire, which basically the gameplay looks like a temple run or maybe Subway servers but with cars. Yeah. But other than that, the game is already got delisted on iOS. And funny enough, this game is only available for iOS platform, not available on Android. But yeah, if you really want to check about this, the Crew mobile games called the Crew Road Empire, go check the video by Legend OP right here, link in the description, because it's talk about the Lost the Crew mobile game. So yeah, go check them out for the full info. The Crew Motorfest livery editor is very broken. Other than that, the report system for the livery itself is very broken as well. If some certain people try to like reporting this livery, it will get removed immediately from the game and from the livery store. Imagine you already working hard to make this livery, but then suddenly someone is trying to being a dick, or maybe trying to get revenge because he lost a Gran race or something, and he decided to just like reporting the livery. And after the constant report of that livery, your hard work is pretty much useless because your livery just got reported and got removed by the terrible in-game livery report system. So I don't know how Ivory Tower made this, you know, automated report system for the livery works, because it's basically just like detect like people trying to report this livery on how many times people report it. It will remove the livery from the game completely. So what Ivory Tower should done is to make a better livery report system and make like a special confirmation that if this livery is bad or if this livery doesn't have any problem. So they should add a proper automated system for this livery reporting system. But IVT is being IVT, well, I don't know, they're probably being incompetent again. I wasn't surprised. There's a lot of like huge changes and improvements when the Crew 1 released the Wild Run DLC. You can probably tell the difference with the graphics. Before the Wild Run update, the Crew 1 graphic is pretty dark. Like the lighting is very dark, and also you know, like the sunset and maybe the sunrise is a bit gloomy in my opinion. However, when the game released the Wild Run update, they improved the graphics by a lot. Like they changed the lighting, it's so much brighter right now, and also they adding like some gloomy effects or maybe some other effects that can make the game much more beautiful compared to the previous updates. But you probably can see a lot of differences on this link down below in the cutting room floor website. because you know there's a lot of stuff changes before it got updated into Valorant DLC. Oh yeah, go check them out. But one of the most noticeable changes is the graphics side of the game. Back in like the Crew 2, if you guys didn't know, there's like a hidden racetrack that is not really usable. One of the example is this racetrack, which has like a speedway and also infield section of the racetrack. I mean, technically it's only used for slalom skills or maybe some, you know, photo challenges. But other than that, it's not really usable. But back in like the Crew 1, I think I remember there's like a faction mission or maybe story campaign that you have to go to this location. I still don't know why this racetrack didn't get used in the Crew 2. The other racetrack that probably people didn't know about is this one, the Windmill Racetrack, which basically just like an off-road or maybe rally racetrack for motocross or maybe for rallycross, because you know it looks like a proper rally racetrack. And I remember back in the Crew 1, this racetrack is also not usable. So it's only there in the game, but it's not really utilized for like race events, faction mission, and other stuff. Same also in the Crew 2, it's not really used for race events as well. And also there's one racetrack that probably no one ever know about this before when playing the Crew 2. This one, the Ice Track, which located somewhere near Jackson in Jackson Hole Valley. And I remember back in the Crew 1, there's like a rally events and also motocross event in this racetrack. And the racetrack is fully snowing, but because in the Crew 2 we only have like a dynamic snow weather, it doesn't snow, even though it's called Ice Track for some reason. So this is the ice racetrack that I talk about and already made the routes in the race creator. So this racetrack is usable back in like the Crew 1 because there's like a rally race event and also a motocross event in this location. And the layout is still the same, but the only difference is there is no snow in the track. Yeah, it's such a missed opportunity that this racetrack and the Windmill Racetrack that we talk about is not very utilized or very usable in the Crew 2. So yeah, that's all the hidden racetrack in the Crew 2, but how about in the Crew Motorfest? Well, there is one which located near one of the Supercar Blondie playlist event right here, which basically this is like you know, a rally racetrack or rally circuit, but it's never been used in the game ever since. But it looks like a rally racetrack, so yeah, that's probably the only hidden racetrack available in the Crew Motorfest. Because other than that, like the dirt raceway that probably seen in the vintage playlist, it's usable for playlist event. And then the racetrack near the Ubisoft logo in the Oahu, it's usable for off-road playlist. So yeah, this is probably the hidden racetrack that I could find in the Crew Motorfest. I think a while ago, the Crew 2 should have a collaboration update with Trackmania, because we already seen there's like a Trackmania Vanities bundle exists in the Crew 2. And I remember I still use those Vanities for my car in the Crew Motorfest and the Crew 2. But maybe because it kind of relates to the progression and also the Trackmania progression, I think it's impossible to have like a Trackmania collaboration with the Crew 2. But the only closest things that we have a Trackmania update in the Crew 2 is when they added the, you know, some, you know, really cool racetrack. This one in the Michigan Lake called the Motorflix Arena. This update adding like a lot of stuff that kind of relates to the Trackmania. For example, like the Alpha GP cars, like this one, it kind of looks like a Trackmania car, and then this one, oh, this one is a Summit AGP cars, looks like a Trackmania car. This one as well, and also the Pulse Performance. Oh yeah, this one is from the Trackmania bundle. All right, I'm gonna use this. But yeah, every single new Alpha GP cars that is in this US Speed Tour Next update, it looks like a Trackmania car. I'm gonna show you the game mode for this US Speed Tour Next because it's very satisfying and it kind of reminds me of like a
Here we are
Trackmania
at race 1
game.
of the US Speed Tour's brand
Like example,
new
like
circuit
this
over
speed
Lake Michigan.
boost, and then
And it's a glorious day to
you know
break
high
some
speed
records.
corners and
Between the
everything,
aerodynamic curves
and then boost
those
on the
innovative
corner and
suction
everything. Yeah,
cups,
it kind of
we should
reminds
see
me of
some
like
very
Trackmania.
impressive top speeds today.
Because you know, Trackmania is about velocity and high-paced racing. So yeah, this is the only update that is close to Trackmania collaboration in Crew 2. I don't know in the future Crew games we have a proper Trackmania collaboration. So yeah, this car is actually from the Trackmania bundle. It has like a Trackmania livery, Trackmania window tint, and a Trackmania underglow. Yeah, I forgot about this. I thought it was the other car, but alright. But yeah, that's that about the you know, cancelled Trackmania DLC, and it becomes one of the, you know, the Crew updates, which still kind of relates to it. If you guys noticed back in the Crew 2, there is a car that has like a better handling edition. Same also for like maybe some of the cars that. So there's like probably 3 like better handling edition of the cars, like this Mercedes-Benz C63 AMG, and then this Jaguar F-Type SVR Coupe. So basically, what this better handling edition means, it has a different handling physics compared to the standard editions. So which means this BMW is the same physics that we got in the beta version of the Crew 2. I think you probably noticed the difference if you already own both of these vehicles, but the only difference is it has like a zebra patterns on the car, and that's it. But other than that, yeah, it has like some different handlings and physics. You probably can feel like the car is very stiff or maybe soft on some of these better handling edition cars. However, in the Crew Motorfest, there is a lot of vehicles that probably in the beta is very good, but in the full release of the game, it got nerfed so badly. Or the most example is the Bugatti Bolide, because I remember in closed beta, this thing is so much meta for racing class. It doesn't understeer, it has a speed, and it has an acceleration for the racing class. And then in full release, they nerf it so much so the car cannot turn anymore. Also same as the McLaren Senna GT4, which in the beta version for the Crew Motorfest, it's a very good car. But in the full release of the game, it's utter garbage. And there's another case that some of this beta handling got brought back in the Season 6 update because some of these cars got handling improvements. One of the most example is the McLaren Senna. McLaren Senna in the closed beta of the Crew Motorfest is probably like a top 5 hypercars because it handles really good. But in the full release, before Season 6 improvements, all the McLaren cars, especially the McLaren Senna, got nerfed so badly. And then in Season 6, they buffed the McLaren again, and some of the Ferraris and a couple of hypercars to be, you know, very competitive in hypercar class. But yeah, the Senna after the Season 6 handling improvements, it's handles not really like a beta version. Even though you know like the speed, the acceleration, it feels like the beta version, but it's kind of a bit understeer on corners sometimes. But yeah, that's beta handling version for you in the Crew Motorfest, because maybe some of them is very noticeable that you're probably using this car in beta, but then in Season 6 when this car got vehicle improvement, you probably can feel like some of these cars has the same beta physics or handling model. But the McLaren Senna and then the Bugatti Bolide is one of the example. If you guys didn't know, in the preview of the Dominion Forsberg update, we have the first ever appearance for the bosses in the Crew 2. Like this one, look, we have the Clarence from the Pro Racing category boss, Tuck from the Off-Road category boss, and also Theo Marquez from, you know, the Street Racing boss. See, it has the Clarence Bishop III. And then the King of the Streets, which means it's Theo Marquez. And then last but not least is Tuck from the Off-Road category. So yeah, that's all the boss appearance return in the Dominion Forsberg update. However, there is one boss that is missing on this Dominion Forsberg that never made an appearance. Yes, is this Miss Sophia herself doesn't make an appearance in the Dominion Forsberg update. So like every boss in the game except her makes a return in the Season 6 update of Motorflix. So yeah, which means this woman right here, your freestyle category boss, is not making an appearance in the Dominion Forsberg update. Well, I mean, because Dominion Forsberg update doesn't have, you know, a freestyle related event, so, well, I guess that's why. Or maybe if you count Wade as one of the boss in the off-road category, well, he also didn't make any returning appearance in the future update. I mean, technically, well, it's pretty obvious of the reasons, because he's gone. There's a lot of like lores behind this American Legends story mission, especially kind of relates to other video game references or maybe movie references. Oh, the most notable example is this one, Billionaire's Work. I think you get a Porsche 550 in this one. Oh yeah, you get a Porsche 550 Spider, and it's kind of, you know, referencing James Dean, which IRL, he owns the Porsche 550 Spider, the car who got James Dean killed. And I think the Chicago haze kind of relates to the Ocean 11 movie, because this is basically a heist. And then there is a Motorfest lore for Malus, one of the, you know, the presenter or the host of Motorfest in Hawaii. And she talks about her past when she lives in the mainland of the United States. And then after you complete all of this story mission on the Malus chapter, you will gifted her 300ZX Malu edition. Oh, and yeah, I forgot about this one as well. It's Toji from, you know, the Crew Motorfest from the Made in Japan playlist. He also, you know, there's like a lore behind it, but I didn't unlock them. But yeah, he talks about like his past in the US mainland as well. But yeah, there's a lot of lores that you can explore in this, you know, American Legends story missions. I remember someone in the Reddit back then posting like a early concept of the Crew 2 Project Orlando, now called the Crew Motorfest. So back when the Crew 2 should have like a Hawaiian map expansion, they reveal like a different kind of game modes. One of the most example is Demo Royale and a Gran Race. Or I think it's called like Massive Race or something back then, just like Riders Republic, you know, Massive Race game modes. So back then in the early concept, Grand Race should have 100 players lobbies. Yes, and I'm not joking. So Grand Race should have 100 players lobbies. I think it consists like 25 different teams, and it contains 4 people in one team. I don't know how much chaos can we get when we have 100 players Grand Race, but I think it's because of like game engine limitation or also server limitation. I think it's really possible to have like you know, a crew or team Grand Race in the, you know, future updates. It's possible. There were a lot of cut content in the Crew 1, for example, like missing cars, missing missions, or maybe some missing racetrack. One of the most notable cut content back in the Crew 1 is the Lexus cars. The Lexus cars that should be in the Crew 1 is a Lexus LFA, one of the most requested cars since the Crew 2 and in the Crew Motorfest as well. But yeah, back in like the Crew 1, Lexus LFAs exist, but maybe because of licensing issues and Lexus demanding more money to get their license in a video game, so they cancelled the plan. So the Lexus LFA didn't make it in the final release of the game. And even a Lexus badge itself is already in the game files. And also there's like a lot of unused or maybe removed cars that is not available in the Crew 1, like the Land Rover, Range Rover Sport, Audi R8 and Audi TTRS, which finally made an appearance in the Crew 2, and then a rocket car, which I don't know what the hell is that. But yeah, you can probably see all the cut content of the Crew 1 in this website, the cutting room floor, link in the description, or probably you can just like search it on Google. You probably guys remember about these Easter eggs back in the Crew 1, which is probably the most creepiest Easter eggs in a racing game's history. So it's called like the end of the world Easter eggs. You can see like a floating newspaper and then abandoned car, and also there's a dead body hidden in the bushes. It's probably one of the most scariest places to visit at night time back in the Crew 1. And this Easter egg is located somewhere near Dallas, so you have to go to this location right here. But in the Crew 2, if you go to the same location right here, you probably still see the same Easter eggs from the Crew 1, but you only see the floating newspaper and the abandoned car right here. They removed the trees, the bushes, and also the dead body. And I think the newspaper didn't say end of the world. Yeah, it's only say... Wait, it features Michael Jordan, I think, but it's, you know, it's upside down. And probably the Easter eggs is getting downtoned in the Crew 2 because of censorship, probably. But yeah, GG's to Ivory Tower, I guess. A lot of you guys didn't know that this Ferrari 308 GTS was already in the Crew 2. So there is like a leaked thumbnail images of the Ferrari 308 GTS, which looks like the thumbnail from the Crew 2. I think the thumbnail got leaked somewhere in the Twitter, and also the thumbnail is available to be downloaded in gamemodels.ru. So yes, this Ferrari 308 GTS, it should be in the Crew 2. But maybe it's because relating to the, you know, the Crew 2 Hawaii expansion. So yeah, because the Hawaiian expansion got cancelled and it becomes a separate game called the Crew Motorfest. So this car got added in the Crew Motorfest instead. I mean, yeah, Hawaiian's perfect settings for the Ferrari 308 GTS because of the iconic TV show Magnum PI used the Ferrari 308 GTS. So that's why like this car is always have an appearance for a game that sets in Hawaii. I think one of the other example is TDU2 that has this Ferrari 308 GTS, because back then they also tried to referencing Magnum PI TV shows. The Crew games is always about exploration, and back in the Crew 1 there is a lot of like treasure hunt things that you can did in the game. For example, like finding satellite dishes, which you can, you know, discovering some hidden missions, skills, or maybe landmarks in the area or in that region. And there's also a treasure hunt which you can discover or wreck parts or abandoned cars scattering around the map, which kinda inspires by the TDU2 treasure hunt wrecks features, which basically you have to collect a certain amount of wrecks that you can find, and then after you manage to find them all on each region, you will unlock a free vehicle. Like treasure hunting back in the Crew 1 is a very unique approach, and it reminds the player that they played a racing games that has an exploration elements to it. However, in the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest, treasure hunt changed into a treasure chest. For example, like in this one in Motorfest, every time your map beeping, you will probably spot some treasure chest somewhere scattering around the map. And there is like a different rarity type for the treasure chest. From the green one, it's for common, blue one for rare, pink one for epic, and then gold is for legendary. Just like what I found the legendary parts. And after you open the treasure chest, you can get money, or you can get parts from the treasure chest. Yeah, I really like the Crew 1 approach of the, you know, the exploration or treasure hunt finding. So yeah, there's a lot of missing game modes that it didn't get carried over from the Crew 1 to the Crew 2 or even the Crew Motorfest. For example, like in the Crew 1, there's a lot of like PvP mini games that like crown game modes, and then there's like you know, capture the flag and etc. Because I don't remember any of it because the last time I played the Crew 1, I cannot play the PvP. But yeah, that's a really unique approach for a game modes that we should need in the Crew Motorfest, like crown mini games and capture the flag, because it's a perfect settings in the Crew Motorfest. And then in the Crew 2, there's also a game mode that is missing from the Crew Motorfest, which is the Monster Truck Freestyle event. which you have to do some freestyle like backflipping, jumping, drifting, and then you have to collect many points as you can. Same also for the proper demolition derby mode that is missing from the Crew Motorfest, because they're only utilizing demolition derby cars for demo royale. But back in the Crew 2, you have a proper demolition derby mode, which you just like trying to survive on some certain times, and you have to, you know, crash into each other and score much points as you can, while trying to survive on some certain limited of times. And also there's like a demolition derby race as well in the Crew 2, which is just like racing in some certain areas, and your goal is just like win. And the other missing game modes that we didn't have in the Crew Motorfest is the PvP mode itself. Like, you know, some proper racing in the private lobbies, and then you can just like racing with your friends on specific track. But yeah, I don't know why Every Tower didn't bring this mode back in the Crew Motorfest. But I hope so in the future they adding, you know, a proper PvP mode or other game modes that the player loves. Back in like 2019, there's a Twitter account called Racing Game Love that always leaking the infos about the Crew 2 upcoming updates until 2023, which he tried to leak some infos about the upcoming features or cars for the Crew Motorfest Season 2. But then Ubisoft trying to suspend his Twitter account. I don't know how they managed to get the insider infos, like, you know, some stuff that is coming for the upcoming updates that is available in the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest, or probably he just part of the, you know, the technical test server or the TTS, but just leaking the infos on the internet. And the other possibilities, one of them friends is probably in the technical test server. Recently there's also one Twitter account that, yeah, same like Racing Game Love, always leaking stuff about the upcoming updates, but this is for the Crew Motorfest. I think it's called Come A Lot 23. But then after he leaked Season 6 stuff, yeah, the account just got suspended really quick. But people say this is one of the parts of the technical test server program, so yeah, I think that's why he got what it deserved, I guess. I know this is still a myth by a lot of people in the community, especially for all of you playing the Crew Motorfest religiously. Is alt account much more faster than your main account? Yeah, this is still a mystery, because probably in this video I will try to prove, you know, like alt accounts, because you didn't have any friends on your friends list compared to like in your main account, can make you load much more faster into the game. But I don't know if it's true about the stuff like, you know, it increase your grip if you're using alt accounts, and also it increase your response on your steering with using alt account. So let me try it out with the faster loading times when you're trying to boot up your game. So yeah, as we can see, we're in Ubisoft Connect, and we're gonna try with my main account first, and let's boot it up Motorfest. I will try to start the countdown when the game runs, because yeah, there will be a timer probably somewhere on the top of your screen, or maybe somewhere. This is my main account because I have like 78 friendlies. Okay, there you go. The game is now on black screen, and yeah, we're in the game. I will just spam the buttons because I was trying to get fast as I can to the main menu and trying to boot the game into the game itself, like the main menu of the game. Right, let us see. Right, sometimes I will get stuck in this, you know, menu. Sometimes it freezes, or I don't know. It's probably because the game is being dumb, or just Ubisoft Connect is being dumb. Oh yeah, there you go. It's a freeze for a couple of seconds, and then we press continue. And then yeah, this loading screen sometimes can freeze as well if I'm using with my main account. There you go. There's a little bit of stutter and freeze. A couple of seconds. And then there is another freeze again. Wow. Yeah, this always happens with my main account. But maybe if you're playing on PlayStation or Xbox, this should load much more faster. Okay, we're in the main menu right now, and I stop the timer. There you go. But yeah, that's very slow because I have a lot of freeze when trying to get into the game, or the main menu of the game right here. Let's try booting up with my alt account. Okay, as you can see right here, this is my alt account, and this is the Ubisoft Connect. I didn't have any friends in my friend list, so it's basically 0. So let's boot it up the Crew Motorfest, and we're gonna see how long it can take to get into the game. Alright, it's still booting up. Come on, come on, come on. Yeah, because sometimes it's very unusual that it can take a long time to load into the game. It's maybe basically Ubisoft Connect is being dumb. Alright. We're gonna see, and then I will start the timer after it got into the black screen of the game, or when it boot up at the start of the game. Come on, come on. There's already 1 minute of recording. God damn it. Alright, there you go. Start the timer right now. And then here we are. I'm gonna spam all the buttons as possible so I can get into the menu as fast as possible. Go, come on. Alright, we're still in the, the splash screen of the Crew Motorfest Ubisoft original. Well, it's not really an original game because they copied or inspired by, other racing game. Yeah, shut up. I already know that I transferred some cars in the Crew Motorfest. Alright, hold on. Well, that took us maybe like less than a minute, or probably a minute, so that's pretty quick with alt account. I mean, basically because I didn't have any friends on my friends list on the alt account, so I guess that's why. Because people said like if you have a lot of friends on your friends list, I think Simji said this in his video, like it makes your game loads slower compared to you have like 10 or dozens of friends in your friends list. But that's pretty dumb. So other than that, about the fast response steering and increased grip if you use alt account, it has to do a lot of research. And in this video, yes, if you use alt account without any friends in your friends list, the game will load much more faster compared to your main account with a lot of friends in your friends list. But yeah, basically the alt account situation has to do a lot of research to it, especially with the myths, with people saying like it increased grip and increased steering response. So basically I will try to research all of that probably in a different video if I had the time, or still really care about playing the Crew Motorfest. There's a lot of like cool looking concept art for the Crew game franchise you've probably seen somewhere in the internet. Like in the Crew 1, you've probably seen, yeah, this is a cool concept art which contains like an image of Dodge Charger or maybe a Chevy Camaro, and then a Chevy Corvette and a rough car. But the concept art in the Crew 1 already contains the vehicle that we can use in the Crew 1. However, the concept art in the Crew 2 is a bit different, but yeah, this image is really looking cool. But it contains a car that is not available to be used in the Crew 2. So this image has a Hyundai i20 WRC rally car and a Ford RS200 rally car, which we didn't have these cars in the Crew 2. And probably you will see a different example of the Crew 2 concept art somewhere in the internet if you Google search them, or maybe if you found it somewhere in Twitter, Reddit, or maybe Instagram. And also there is like a jet sprint concept art for maybe the Crew 2 Project Orlando, or should I say the cancelled Hawaiian expansion for the Crew 2, and it turns become the Crew Motorfest. I know a lot of people think that the Crew franchise should be a Test Drive Unlimited successor. Yeah, because on how the features works, on how the game feels work, like the exploration, and then in the Crew 2 and Motorfest you can just like walking around just like in TDU2, and then in the Crew 2 you actually have a house, which is basically the lifestyle features of the game, just like in TDU2, and on how the game can let you showcase vehicles, for example like test driving cars, get into the people car seats, and then just start the engine, turn on the wipers, or just honking their horns. And all of these things exist in the TDU franchise before. And the Crew trying to did what TDU did. The creative director of the Crew, Stefan Bailey, or we used to call it Fergus, is one of the creative directors for Test Drive Unlimited 1. So that's why we have a lot of inspiration of the Crew games from the TDU franchise. But then, years later, TDU makes a comeback with the TDU Solar Crown, and we already know what happened with Solar Crown. It's not feels like a successor of the TDU, but the Crew games feels much more like a TDU games. And then, like, if you remember correctly, TDU 1 and TDU 2 set place in Hawaii, in Oahu. And then the Crew Motorfest sets place in Oahu as well, in Hawaii, but it got expanded to Maui Island. But this franchise, or this game, it should be the TDU successor. I mean, if you already play like TDU 1 and TDU 2, you probably know a lot of like stuffs got carried over to the Crew franchise. Like the exploration, lifestyle, everything. It carries over to the Crew franchise. Back in like the Crew 2, there is a spreadsheet for a community requested vehicle list. However, this list is never got updated again since maybe 2021. And then if you see of the highly requested cars percentage, you've probably seen them in the next Crew games, in the Crew Motorfest. Or maybe some of these requested cars got added in the future Crew 2 updates. Like the example is the Corvette C8R. You probably also saw Audi RS6 Avant. It's also got added to the Crew Motorfest. Acura/Honda NSX from the 90s is also available in the Crew Motorfest. But yeah, there's a lot of examples that you probably seen on this requested vehicle car list that got added eventually in the future Crew games. And also, yeah, the Lamborghini boat is also in this requested list, and it got added in the Crew Motorfest. Yeah. So you can see the spreadsheet for yourself, and link is in the description down below with the other sources for this Crew Iceberg videos. I still remember the time, I think it was back in like 2020 or maybe 2021. It's when like COVID era happens that someone just posted a fake Crew 3 trailer. They're using like, you know, IRL clips in the trailer itself. But I guess the video already got removed by the uploader. But you probably can see like a fake Crew 3 trailer somewhere in YouTube or maybe Reddit. But basically the trailer is using like Forza Horizon gameplay or Need for Speed Heat or Payback gameplay. But yeah, you can just search them. Ubisoft is very anal when it comes to copyright strikes or takedown. Just like, you know, the suspended Twitter account that leaks the Crew 2 or the Crew Motorfest upcoming updates. So one of my friends, Rhino the Raccoon, posted a video for his early access preview of the Crew Motorfest Season 5. I think he posted like, you know, an early preview of the playlist. I think it's like Made in Japan Fall 2 or Chase Squad playlist. So Rhino posted the video after the embargo got lifted. Yeah, because if you're in Ubisoft Content Creators Program, you probably know that we can play the preview of the updates of the Crew Motorfest, and then we can just like post the video after our embargo got lifted on some certain times or on some certain dates. So yeah, Rhino just posted his preview of the Season 5 video 1 minute after the embargo got lifted. But then Ubisoft, because it has like a, you know, a dumb automated system, it detects Rhino's video as breaching the embargo. So his video got deleted and Rhino has to appeal to Ubisoft about this situation. I think this also same for my other friends, Denko. He's also posting like the preview of the Season 5 content on his channel. Then, a couple of minutes later after the video got published, the video is not accessible anymore because Ubisoft copyright strikes his video. And yeah, it's the same case as Rhino, so after the embargo got lifted, the video got published, but sadly, it got copyright strikes by Ubisoft and got taken down. Yeah, it's just so dumb that they do this to content creators in the Ubisoft programs. This car is very mystery till these days. So back in like 2023, the Crew 2 announced the Season 10 update, which is the Mad Volma 1. But I remember someone in Twitter, I think it's probably Racing Game Love or Camelot23, posting an image of an Audi Quattro Pikes Peak rally car that exists for this update. So I think it got replaced by a Peugeot 205 rally car, but that image, I probably see it in this screen right here, that is really looking like an Audi Quattro S1 Pikes Peak rally car. I think this car is available in the preview build of Season 10 update, and Ivory Tower decided to not put the car in the game, even though it's already teased in the preview and also already teased in the in-game files for the Crew 2. Why they did this to us? Like, it's probably they saving content for like, oh yeah, let's save it for future update of the Crew Motorfest, I guess, but well, I don't know, because we still didn't have the Audi Quattro S1 Group B rally car till these days. That's so absurd, but yeah, this car is still a mystery till these days on the Crew franchise. I still remember, I think this is back when, you know, the Crew Motorfest has like an insider program, which I think it consists of like PC players and PlayStation players. It was in like 2023, I think it's like June of 2023 before, you know, the content creators embargo got lifted. Someone in the insider program just live stream the alpha builds of the Crew Motorfest, which is really illegal. And I think it's streamed on like YouTube, and I remember there's like hundreds of viewers watching it. And I still remember someone asking in the live chat that, can I see a car list? Can I see the Supra? And oh my god, it's just imploded. So yeah, I guess he's just doing it for exposure, and it's just like leaking the gameplay to the public to watch their live streams. Even Ubisoft said like in the contracts or the, you know, disclaimer thingy, it says like you cannot live stream the game, but you can only play the game by yourself, and you cannot share image or videos on this, you know, testing phase or in the insider program. But yeah, this guy just like streaming it to the public so everyone can watch it, and then you probably can see like the gameplay and other stuff. And you guys probably know, like, if you're in the technical test server, you will have like a lot of numbers in your screen, and it can make you a lot of headache on the technical test server. And yeah, this guy is just like showing the gameplay, and there's a lot of numbers in the screen because it's still in the you know, testing phase for the game. So yeah, that's really crazy because you know, he just leaked the gameplay before other content creators uploaded to the internet after the embargo got lifted. And yes, because Ubisoft is very anal in terms of like someone breaching the NDA or, you know, breaching embargo or, you know, copyright strikes. I think the channel is now gone and the live stream is now gone. So yeah, probably he got cease and desist and probably sent to prison. I don't know. So I think Racing Game Love back in Twitter before he got suspended, and also someone from Reddit teased about the contractors update. There will be like a new taxi cars, new limos, and some other funny vehicles that will be added in Crew Contractors update. And the other missing vehicles that we didn't have till these days is this Cadillac Escalade Limo Presidential Edition, I think. But yeah, basically this is the, you know, the president limo that in real life they always use, I guess. But I don't know what happened with this Cadillac, so it just vanished from the game. We never seen this car ever again, and also we never see this car in the Crew Motorfest. Yeah, it's such a shame because I really want more limos in the game, and Cadillac Escalade Limo is not on my agenda, but I really want it. Okay, this one is still very mystery. You guys remember about the Endless Drive challenge that the developers hosted back in the Crew Motorfest Season 5 update. So we already have the winning team, but we didn't know who is the MVP for the winning team. Because, if I remember correctly, the MVP of the winning team will have like a special prize. One of the prizes like a PS5 Pro, and the other one is the TCM PC. Yeah, it's basically a PC with the Crew Motorfest skin to it. And this is the system requirements for the TCM PC. I think I already saw it in the website. And I must say the system requirements is a bit bottleneck in my opinion. But yeah, we still don't know who's the winner of the TCM PC, because I know for a fact it's not Sidwatch, and he already confirmed it in his video. So yeah, it's maybe someone else. Or probably someone we know that always grind the game every day. Music Maker. So there's a lot of Easter eggs that got removed from the Crew 2. And one of the example is this Easter eggs right here. Yeah, so in this location, you'll probably see a clown stuck in these sewers. And it's trying to like referencing the movie It. Because you know the clown is stuck somewhere in like the drainage or maybe the sewers and trying to scaring off children. But yeah, in the Crew 2, it used to be in this spot, but yeah, it got removed. I think it's because of like the constant update they have in the game. Like some of these Easter eggs just got removed completely in the Crew 2. I think there's other example of the missing Easter eggs that it got removed from the game completely. So the Easter egg that I meant that is missing from the game, I think it's this one. Wait, hold on. Hold on, you're a raccoon. Because I know there's a raccoon with glasses Easter eggs somewhere in this location. Are you the one? The answer is no, you are the normal raccoon. But yeah, according to my, Easter eggs guide from the Steam guides, yeah, there's a raccoon with Easter eggs spawns in this location somewhere near Salt Lake City or the ski jump resort. Or maybe near St. Julian's Peak. So yeah, the raccoon should be spawned in this location, but I think it's already removed from the game. Or maybe it's because it's rarely to spawn. So yeah, if you see the pictures, yes, there is a raccoon with the sunglasses Easter eggs in the Crew 2. Probably Ubisoft is predicting Rhino the Raccoon back in 2018. So, back when Maserati MC20 got added to the Crew 2, this car should have a visual customization, especially white body kits. But after the Maserati MC20 got added into the game for a full release version of the game, yeah, the visual customization is nowhere to be seen, and the only customization that you can do is changing the rims, and also paints, liveries, and vanities. This is the same issues when the Maserati MC20 Cielo, the Spider version, got added to the Crew Motorfest. Everyone is speculating like, oh yeah, the white body of this Maserati MC20 should come in this version of the Maserati MC20 Spider. But eventually, when the car got added, yeah, there is still no visual customization. But yeah, you've probably seen in the preview build of the Maserati MC20, it has a proper white body kit. I think this is the same issues as well with Forza franchise, because they're trying to add the Maserati MC20 to the game, and probably it already has like a special white body kits for that car, but because of licensing issues, prevent them to add the cars and also the white body kit as well. So maybe it kind of related to, you know, the white body kit has a licensing issues with Maserati. I think that's probably my guess. I remember there's a banned vanities back in the Crew 2, which kind of relates to, you know, the Hawaiian theme of the Crew Motorfest. So the vanities should be released on the Season 9 update. It's basically like a sacred statue vanities. And if I remember correctly, I think it's an rooftop vanities. So the rooftop vanities kind of looks like a sacred statue that you probably seen somewhere in Hawaii. But yeah, that rooftop is nowhere to be seen in the game anymore. Probably because, you know, it's too religious or something. Or maybe too cursed. So yeah, they decided to remove it. Other than that, there is another vanities that got removed from the game. And in a typical fashion, this vanity is related to a Ferrari brands. So the only window tint option that you have in the Ferraris is only black window tint, but I think in the Crew Motorfest you have like other option, which is basically just like a white coated window tint or something. But back in the Crew 2, Ferrari should have a special window tint. I think it's like a red and blue color thing, but yeah, sadly it got removed because maybe the crew or Ivory Tower didn't want to get a cease and desist by Ferrari. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, for this particular iceberg content that I will discuss is actually from my Twitter account. So back in like August 2023, the Crew Motorfest, just announced the official vehicle lineup or the vehicle list for the Crew Motorfest that will be released next month on September. So I replied like, hey, I didn't see the Nissan Skyline GTR R32 because it got teased somewhere in Grand Race, which we finally got this car in Season 5 when we have the Maui Island expansion. So after I checked the reply, so this reply is actually inspired to be added in my iceberg. So this guy, a guy called Simplistic Being, that's his username, kind of like when they teased the Kia Stinger GT in a video. Wait, I didn't even know the Kia Stinger is teased in the Crew 2 somewhere. The video was before Crew 2 got released, so basically it's from a trailer or something. Alright, and my brother bought it for that car specifically. And the Crew 2 never released the Kia Stinger GT, so be wary, Avatars doesn't always show real content. I agree. He also replied this, they never added the paintball for planes. Paintball missile keybind in the .ini file from the My Documents of the Crew 2 exist. They also never added the football game Rocket League S for monster trucks. They are still in Crew 2 data files. Wow, okay. I also replied like some of the cars already got teased on TC2 data files, like the Ferrari 308 GTS they already explained in the previous level. The Nissan Silvia S14, if I remember, there is like the Nissan Silvia S14 is actually should be added in the Crew 2, and also the Chevy Chevelle because it's already teased in the in-game file somewhere. I think I remember someone posting it on Reddit or Twitter, I forgot, because the only images that I can find is the Ferrari 308 GTS. But yeah, so I'm gonna go to my documents. I'm gonna prove if he's right. I really want to prove that the paintball game mode should exist in the Crew 2. So the other cut content or missing features that he mentioned, I will not put it in the video because there is no evidence to back it out, and I didn't want to, to just open the in-game database of the Crew 2. I think this is true because I remember I see that key binding somewhere. If you see right here, look, action name, paintball missile. But there is no key binding to it. But yeah, this is actually exists. And the paintball game mode, it should be in the Crew 2. I think it can relate to like you using a plane and trying to shoot out cars. It's kinda inspired by the Top Gear challenges when Clarkson, May, and Hammond's trying to run away from the planes when they're using like Lexus LFA, Aston Martin Vanquish, and the SRT Viper in Willow Springs. I think it's that episode. So that game mode is probably inspired by the Top Gear challenge, but it never got added in the Crew 2. Wow, this is actually the most unknown stuff that probably people didn't know. If you guys already noticed from like couple of iceberg level ago, you've probably seen this image, which it contains like a Subaru BRZ, roof cars, Dodge Ram. It already exists in the in-game files of the Crew 2. However, if you look closely, there is a Lamborghini Huracan Performante Dimone Rosso edition. Basically, it's another Lamborghini Huracan Performante Summit cars that should be available as the Crew 2 Summit exclusive cars. Sadly, we never got this car. I think this is the same case as the Honda S2000 Tropical Madness edition, but it got added in the Crew Motorfest as a Kamea Hadar edition. So I don't know about this Huracan Performante Summit special cars for later on. Is this car will be added in the Crew Motorfest or just left it behind in the Crew 2 in-game files? And the other removed Crew 2 Summit cars is this Honda Civic Type R. So this Honda Civic Type R is called the Space Explorer Edition, which resemblance kind of looks like a NASA car. And it's leaked somewhere in Twitter and Reddit by someone. But basically, yeah, this Civic Type R, it looks like a NASA edition. So I think it got licensing issues with NASA or copyright infringement. So we don't know about the outcome for this Civic Type R, because this car should be as a Summit exclusive Platinum car back in the Crew 2. And it got changed by the F-150 SVT Raptor Outer Space Edition. So which one you preferred? This rally raid car or the Honda Civic NASA looking car? I really prefer the Honda Civic though. I know this is probably like a speculation, but a lot of people assuming that the Crew Motorfest Season 2 of Hoonigan Update should hosted by Mr. Ken Block himself. But because of the tragic death of Ken Block back in 2023, every plans relating to like the Hoonigan with Ken Block prior to the, partnership with Motorfest, so they have to like rearrange something, and the only things that we got for the Hoonigan update in Season 2 is the tribute for the Ken Block himself, and also hosted by his friend Ryan Skodos. So yeah, I guess like the Hoonigan playlist is a bit underwhelming. I mean, yeah, there's still like a Gymkhana kind of related to Ken Block and tribute of the Ken Block. It's really good, but yeah, it's not really like a proper Hoonigan that we know, because it's mainly focusing on Brian Skodos' car, like the Audi Skodos and then the Porsche Skodos and also the Big Block Camaro, but not the iconic Ken Block Hoonigan machine that we knew from other racing games title. The only Ken Block cars that we have in the Crew Motorfest is probably the Hoonicorn and then the Hoonitron, and there's like 2 different versions of it for racing and drift, and maybe, yeah, this Ford Focus RX. So if you guys didn't know, this Ford Focus RS RX 2016 is modeled from the Ken Block Hoonigan car. Because if you see clearly on the steering wheel, it says Hoon. Yeah, and this is the first ever Hoonigan car that we had in the Crew franchise. Yeah, it's such a shame that the Hoonigan is a bit underwhelming because of Ken Block's absence due to his tragic death earlier that year. But it will be really awesome like if Ken Block is still around and hosting the Gymkhana playlist with all the iconic Hoonigan's car that we knew, that we seen from his Gymkhana footage. So there you go guys, that's the iceberg for the Crew games, and I already explained it for 3 hours. I just yapping for 3 hours straight, god damn it. So I hope you guys enjoy this kind of content, and if you guys really like this content, don't forget to drop a like, share it to your friends, or maybe subscribe to this channel if you haven't. So once again, correct me if I'm wrong, if there's like a minor grammar mistakes or maybe some mistakes when I'm trying to explain the content in this iceberg video, and correct me if there is like misleading information or missing information in this iceberg. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below. I hope you guys have a great race for your day. See you next video. Take care and goodbye.